Go ahead and start recording, please.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Thursday afternoon, July 15th, 2021 session of the Portland City Council. Keelan, please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Here.
Maps.
Here.
Rubio.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here, and I see it's Megan. Good afternoon, Megan. It's good to see you today.
Good afternoon.
Under Portland City Code and state law, the City Council is holding this meeting electronically. All members of the council are attending remotely by video and teleconference, and the city has made several avenues available for the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The meeting is available to the public on the city's YouTube channel, www.portlandoregon.gov/video, channel 30 as well. The public can also provide written testimony to the council at cctestimony@portlandoregon.gov. The council is taking these steps as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to limit in-person contact. The pandemic is an emergency that threatens the public health and safety and welfare, which requires us to meet remotely by electronic communications. Thank you all for your patience, your flexibility, and your understanding as we manage through these challenging circumstances to conduct the city's business. With that, we'll hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. The published council agenda at portlandoregon.gov/auditor contains information about how and when you may sign up for testimony while the city council is holding electronic meetings. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 2 to 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When your time is up, the presiding officer will ask you to conclude. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being placed on hold or rejected from the remainder of the electronic meeting. Please be aware that all council meetings are recorded.
Thank you very much. We have one item this afternoon, item 568. Can you please read it, Megan?
Accept the 2021 South Park Blocks Master Plan as a guide for future use and development of the park.
Before I turn this over to Commissioner Rubio, just a couple of housekeeping items. This is an important issue. There's a lot of people who are signed up to testify today. We will be accepting testimony at 2 minutes per person. So if you need to take a little time and edit your talking points, this would be a good time to do it because we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to testify today. This is a resolution. Ordinarily, the council would vote on resolutions after hearing the testimony, but I just want to give people a heads up, given the large number of people signed up, that it is possible, in fact, maybe even probable, that the council will not deliberate or take the vote today, but we will wait until the end of this session and we'll make that decision as a full council. So with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Rubio. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, and good afternoon, everyone. The South Park blocks have long served Portlanders for many generations, providing spaces for gathering, rest, play, and civic expression at the heart of downtown's University and Cultural District. They've also been places for study and friendship gathering, and also people coming together to enjoy the Cultural District and all that our city has to offer. Everyone has memories here. And as with all shared spaces, though, the parks block are many things for many Portlanders, and balancing competing interests and perspectives can be challenging. The master planning process provided an opportunity to learn about the park's diverse history and existing features, and also hear from Portlanders about new challenges and new opportunities. And while I know some people have concerns or are not happy with all or parts of this plan, others are also excited for it. We have all groups very eager to participate in this plan. And if you are someone who is eager and interested, I want you to know that we hear you and to underscore that this is a plan at the conceptual design phase, and we welcome your continued engagement, no matter what position you have or opinions that you hold at this point. It's a broad conceptual document, and any specific plans will still need to go through council ultimately. Parks has had robust, inclusive engagement and conversations with people both in support and opposition of the plan, and has also taken in numerous ideas, suggestions, and feedback that they've done their best to be responsive and inclusive of these ideas and feedback. And that is one reason I'm excited to bring the South Park Blocks master plan for your consideration. As they've developed it, Parks with project lead Tate White and community engagement lead Barbara Hart have engaged a wide variety of stakeholders, including but not limited to the Regional Arts and Culture Council, the Oregon Historical Society, and Portland 5 Centers for the Arts, the Pacific Northwest College of Art, and various PSU constituencies, Portland Farmers Market, the City of Portland's Urban Forestry Division and Bureau of Transportation, Planning and Sustainability, Environmental Services and Development Services, TriMet, the Portland Business Alliance, Downtown Clean and Safe, and numerous community groups and individuals. A community advisory committee was also formed with members representing different backgrounds, walks of life, and points of view. And I want to thank all of the community advisory committee members for their contributions, including those who are joining us today. The project team also conducted surveys, focus groups, and community meetings via digital channels and, where appropriate, in person with COVID precautions. This process took more than 2 years, and as a result is, I believe, a comprehensive vision that spans and balances many different ways Portlanders enjoy the South Park blocks. The proposed public spaces are inclusive. The proposed landscapes reflect many different cultures, perspectives, and experiences, and seek to offer opportunities for reconciliation and healing through the landscape. Portlanders also ask for better representation of diverse cultural histories and identities in art and other South Park blocks features, and rehabilitation of spaces to be more accessible to people of all ages and abilities. They also ask for more spaces to gather and host public events while preserving opportunities for private contemplation and reflection. The master plan manages to balance all of these elements, and it does this without proposing to proactively remove any trees. I know there has been some confusion and different opinions about this, so I want to be clear. Passing the master plan does not mean trees are going to be cut down. Rather, the plan outlines a forward-looking tree succession strategy to guide replacing trees when they naturally reach the end of their lifespans. The long-term vision preserves the canopy of elm trees, adds more species diversity, and creates animal habitat. It balances goals for improving the growing conditions and resiliency of the urban forest while maintaining the historic character and form of the trees and canopy. The plan has benefited from the advice of many professional arborists, as well as the active participation of Portland's urban forester, Jen Cairo, and I would like to thank them all for their contributions. I've also heard concerns that adopting this master plan will undercut our hard work to grow our park system in areas that have been underserved, especially in East Portland. I am grateful that so many people share our council's commitment to equity and inclusion, as well as my personal commitment as Parks Commissioner to fill gaps in our parks facilities like those that exist in East Portland. I want to assure you that nothing in this plan will take away from that work. The question before us is not an either or. We can both adequately plan for our South Park blocks and keep growing our system in underserved parts of town. To anyone who is concerned that this master plan comes at the expense of improving parks facilities in East Portland, I sincerely invite you to reach out to my office and join in our work to build a more equitable and inclusive park system. I'd also like to give my appreciation to Tate White and her team for taking such a thoughtful approach to making a popular shared public space like the South Park blocks a more inclusive and equitable one. In closing, I'd like to take a moment to anticipate and acknowledge the challenges of updating an iconic public space that is so beloved, such as the South Park blocks. I completely understand that people have deep emotional connections to the space as it currently exists. I too have a strong emotional connection to this wonderful space. In closing, I want you to say that I love that Portlanders love their parks, and I hope we can continue to partner together in caring for our natural spaces, especially as we face the threats of climate change. I will now turn it over to Tate White for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Rubio. I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone hear me okay and see my screen?
Yeah, you sound good and the screen looks good.
Great, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, everyone else who is joining us today, welcome. My name is Tate White, and I'm a senior planner with Portland Parks and Recreation, and I've been the project manager for the Bureau on the South Park Blocks master planning process for the past 2.5 years. But I'm representing many who have worked on this project, including city and partner agency colleagues like Barbara Hart, who has been leading community engagement. We also worked with a strong consultant team led by cultural landscape experts, MIG, with sub-consultants, landscape architecture firm Mayor Reed, board certified master arborist, Morgan Holen and Associates, tool design, and engagement firm Lois Cohen and Associates. Thank you all for your time and attention as I present an overview of the recommended draft of the South Park Blocks Master Plan. The South Park Blocks are part of the larger Park Blocks spine, connecting downtown Portland's cultural and educational centers and providing for a range of passive and active recreational activities. This master plan focuses on the 12 contiguous blocks that are part of the university and cultural districts in between Southwest Jackson and Salmon Streets. The map on the left shows a yellow dotted line representative of the conceptual alignment for the Green Loop that was adopted with the Central City 2035 plan and considered through this planning process. The next 2 slides show the 7 project goals we began with. For all park master plans, we aim to have a community-supported park design and provide opportunities for all ages and abilities. Portland and the land it encompasses has a complex and nuanced history that we set out to understand and respect through this planning process. The original park trees that were planted in 1877 are aging and gradually reaching the end of their lifespans. So we needed to consider long-term planning for them as well as for the next generations of trees and park users. Other project goals were around prioritizing safety for all users as we considered how the Green Loop would be integrated near the park and similarly accounting for adjacent uses and development trends. This park has many interrelated challenges when it comes to trees, landscaping, programming, and maintenance. So reflecting the capacities, resources, and strengths of the many park stewards was key. The park blocks are connected to early Portland development, but the plan also acknowledges the many contributions Indigenous groups have made to this land for time immemorial, as well as continued Indigenous presence on this landscape and in this park, with key connections to Portland State University and the Native American Student and Community Center. The map on the top left shows tribal lands in what would become the Oregon Territory. And the photo on the top right was taken in 1878, after native vegetation had been cleared and initial trees for the developed park had been planted in a grid-like fashion. The diagram at the bottom highlights the more contemporary renovations of the University District in the 1970s and the Cultural District in the 1980s. But there has not previously been a comprehensive direction for all 12 blocks, excuse me. As the last slide depicted, this land and park has seen a lot of change over time. The consultant team documented the change in the developed park in an existing conditions, issues, and opportunities report that they did early in the planning process. A diagram from that report is shown on the slide, and it depicts the high level of change in the park pathways that has been seen since the early 20th century. Consultant team used their cultural landscape expertise to identify these 5 character-defining park features as central to what has remained in some form during the South Park Block's existence as a developed park. Throughout the project, the design team worked to protect and emphasize these features in balance with other project goals and in accordance with the rehabilitation standards of the National Park Service for cultural landscapes. Community, staff, and partner agency engagement has been central to this process. The Community Advisory Committee was formed at the outset in April 2019 to represent a diversity of perspectives about what will best serve the downtown area and the citywide community. The first column on this slide is a summary of the Community Advisory Committee member affiliations, and the second column summarizes groups represented on the Technical Advisory Committee. We started engagement with walking tours and visioning for the future of the park, including a party in the park to gather community input. We had a concept development workshop with technical and community advisors to guide the consultants' work. The refined concepts were reviewed on multiple occasions in the fall and winter of 2019 and 2020, and that input was used to develop a draft preferred design. At both concept review and draft preferred design phases, we have done targeted focus groups and meetings with youth at St. Mary's Academy, PSU students representing diverse lived experiences, and representatives from the Native American Community Advisory Council, the Parks Accessibility Advisory Committee, and other stakeholders. We did voluntary public briefings with the Urban Forestry, Design, and Historic Landmarks Commissions to get their advice and provide further guidance to the project team. Community input and technical feedback received throughout the planning process, and most recently on the draft preferred design, has guided development of the high-level recommended draft of the South Park Blocks Master Plan. It's challenging to briefly summarize what we heard over 27 months of engagement, but each touch point with the community has informed the conceptual design and plan development through an iterative process. Early on, we heard that the community wants to see more native plantings and habitat, art representing more diverse cultural histories and identities, as well as more cultural performances, live music, and community event space. We also heard that people value spaces for rest and quiet. So the plan strengthens the South Park Block's ability to serve these various desires. Safety and accessibility were overwhelmingly highlighted as areas for improvement. We heard contrasting opinions about the green loop, trees, and historic considerations. So the plan has responded with a balanced approach that ultimately gained strong support from most of the Community Advisory Committee members, with one in opposition. Here's the recommended draft for the University District. Please keep in mind all designs are conceptual and will be worked out in more detail when there is funding for implementation. We will talk about blocks 1, 2, and 4. For block 1, we are recommending renovating the current play area and better connecting to the Native American Student and Community Center through safe pedestrian connections and native planting areas that will be used similarly to the native gardens that are on the roof of the center today. We are emphasizing future partnerships with the Indigenous Nations Studies program for native species selection and planting design using Indigenous traditional ecological knowledge. Traditional Indigenous ecological knowledge. We also want to partner with the Native American Student and Community Center to improve their connection to the South Park Blocks and representation throughout. Here you can see a section taken diagonally through the block to help visualize what this could look like. And here are example images of the recommended elements. For block 2, we are proposing a new plaza to better serve programming needs in the area, including the Saturday Farmers Market and annual salmon bakes put on by the United Indigenous Students in Higher Education. Adding this new plaza will help minimize damage to the remaining lawn areas in this already highly programmed area. With the Green Loop alignment plan for College Street, we expect users are going to want to naturally take the diagonal pathway and avoid conflict with future plaza users. This is the one location the Green Loop is proposed to eventually go through the park once the plaza is built. because we want to design to support it happening safely rather than pretend it will not happen, despite this being an obvious desire line. This section shows this concept with the plaza function complementing the biking pavilion and the pathway serving green loop users. This concept can continue to be tested, explored, and revised through ongoing planning and design. For Block 4, we are recommending renovating the existing Smith Amphitheater Plaza to make it more accessible and better support the many events that already happen in this location. This section shows what this could look like, and note the green loop path is recommended to be a shared use path along the current vacated right-of-way west of the park. Throughout the University District, pathways are recommended to be rehabilitated over time to be more accessible, and a couple of small ones added where there are current desire lines, like near the streetcar where we have a mulched path currently as a temporary solution. Additional native planting space is added to Block 5, and locations for rotating art exhibits provided at Block 6. Now we'll talk about the Cultural District. You can see in the key map at the top right of the slide that the green loop path is proposed alongside the park where the current sidewalk and street parking are located. I'm going to talk about Blocks 8, 10, and 11 in more detail. Block 8 has more additional features than Block 7 or 9, including an interactive art feature and social seating. Here you can see a section of what that block could look like. And example images. As a reminder, there will be more engagement and detailed design at implementation to determine exactly what park enhancements will be. At Blocks 10 and 11, the portion of Madison Street in between the park blocks is recommended to be closed to regular vehicle traffic so it can become part of the park, expanding and connecting these blocks to create more flexible, usable space. The north-south raised beds from Block 10 are relocated to frame this new plaza space and provide a clear visual to vehicles that this is no longer part of the regular street network. There are modified benches promoting more social interaction to frame this new plaza and the current plazas in the middle of the existing park blocks that formerly hosted the Roosevelt and Lincoln statues. Future processes centered around Black and Indigenous voices, as well as other communities of color, will identify potential replacement and new public art representing more diverse cultural identities and histories. Here are example images of what these new features could look like. We have looked at the blocks in the Cultural District with the most additional features recommended. Throughout the district, central planters are relocated and central trees not replanted over time to accommodate increased space that's needed to enhance growing conditions for current and replacement trees and provide more space between trees and park pathways. A future wider central promenade would provide improved maintenance access and feasibility, wider, more accessible paving and less conflict with tree roots, and clear sightlines promoting natural surveillance and safety for all. Any planters that may eventually be removed from the center would be replaced by planted components added to other parts of the park or in the street through the Madison Street Plaza and Green Loop. The tree succession strategy provides a long-term guide for replacing trees after they naturally reach the end of their lifespans. It does not propose proactive removal. Looking back on the last 10 years, Portland Parks and Recreation's Urban Forestry Division notes that on average, 1 tree a year is needed to be removed from the South Park blocks because of disease, death, or the effect of storms. Based on this experience, we anticipate losing 20 of the current approximately 330 trees in the South Park blocks to these natural causes over the next 20 years, making change very gradual. The long-term tree succession strategy will guide how we replace these trees over the next hundreds of years. If the complete vision is achieved, there may be 20% less trees in the South Park blocks, but importantly, the tree canopy will remain, and the trees will be healthier and more resilient for future generations. More detailed design and construction practices will work towards preventing tree removal from park improvements and optimizing replanting locations. The top plan image represents a tree inventory and assessment that was done early in the planning process. The bottom image is the long-term vision to guide replanting of the next generations of trees over hundreds of years. The long-term vision in the University District prioritizes locations towards the center for larger stature species and provides more opportunities for species diversity along the edges, including strategic locations for evergreen trees, to provide more native species in this landscape again, and trees that can better process stormwater during winter events or winter months that will become even more rainy with climate change. I want to note the importance of honoring Indigenous traditions and values by reincorporating some evergreen species, as well as other important native trees like Oregon white oak. There's more opportunity to do this in the University District, where tree character has already changed quite significantly. In the Cultural District, you can see in the 2019 inventory image at the top, we have a rather tight grid, and the consulting arborist on the project found that newly planted trees are struggling to establish under the shady canopy of the mature trees. If we were to plant this landscape today with large stature elm and elm-like trees, we would not plant them this close together or this close to paved paths. We also cannot replicate the mature canopy we have with these tree species today in these planting locations, unless we did remove and replant them all at once to replicate their original planting conditions. That's not what we're proposing. Instead, we are giving mature trees more time to reach the end of their lifespans and being strategic about where we replant trees to enhance growing conditions for surviving and new trees. The long-term vision achieves a healthy and more resilient tree canopy for our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. If we don't do this and continue to replace trees in exactly the same locations, their future health and the fullness of their canopy will suffer. The Park Master Plan provides illustrative examples of how the Green Loop portion near the South Park blocks could be built, but the park plan is not determining the Green Loop design. There will be future processes for that. The Green Loop concept shown for the master plan in the Cultural District retains one lane of moving traffic on Park Avenue West. I'm showing renderings that were done by PBOT to help visualize what this would look like on the ground. The 5-foot wide pedestrian sidewalk serving parked cars is expanded into the current street parking space to become a 12-foot wide Green Loop path. A 6-foot wide planted buffer separating this path from vehicles extends the park-like character into the street. Here you can see these dimensions overlaid on a photo of the current Park Avenue West. And here you can see a rendering of this concept. Trees will not be removed or damaged for the Green Loop. PBOT and other contractors build and repair sidewalks next to mature trees regularly, and urban forestry is part of this work to ensure trees and their roots are protected. The council adopted Green Loop Vision report describes it as a path that invites people to take a break from work, walk, run, and ride among trees and beautiful parks. Although it's shared use nature and other design elements will encourage slower speeds, not every pedestrian is going to be comfortable mixing with other modes. Therefore, separate walking areas are provided wherever possible, like the many pathways provided in the park. Protected bike lanes are provided on nearby Southwest Broadway and 4th Avenue for faster moving cyclists. A connected cultural district concept for the Green Loop emerged through this planning process. This concept selectively eliminates regular car traffic and parking to truly expand and connect cultural institutions to the park. This idea is presented in Appendix B to the plan to give City Council an opportunity to tell staff whether you want us to explore it further. Here are some renderings that show the added space and design flexibility this provides to bring the Green Loop path farther away from the park edge and give more space in the street for multiple modes, trees, and landscaping. Some funding for a small park improvement is available for Block 8 through the public benefit contribution that paid for this park master plan. Most recommended projects will go on the Bureau's capital improvement project list and will move forward for detailed design and construction when funding becomes available and system-wide priorities support moving forward. At that time, more engagement and City Council touchpoints will take place. Implementation timing is unknown, very likely to be phased, and partnerships will be vital to accomplish it over time. High-level cost estimates are provided in the plan in 2020 dollars. These are for planning purposes, not budgeting purposes. Acceptance of the master plan does not initiate commitment of these funds. Future potential capital improvement projects will go back to City Council for such approvals. To conclude, I'm showing the major community influence directions established by the master plan that will be carried forward into implementation. They include balancing contemporary needs with maintaining historic character-defining features, optimizing opportunities for reconciliation and healing through the landscape and park features, promoting inclusive design so each block meets or exceeds accessibility codes and standards, increasing safety with improved sightlines to provide park users natural surveillance and features for passive activation, creating opportunities for interaction and learning among different groups, representing more diverse cultural histories and identities in art, landscaping, and other park features, prioritizing pedestrian and bicycle safety through incorporation of green loop facilities, and providing elements to unify all 12 blocks while acknowledging and supporting the different histories, functions, and needs. Thank you for your time and attention. This concludes my portion of the presentation, but we have valued guests with us today that I will be introducing. I'm going to unshare my screen. So a key piece of the planning process has been the guidance, expertise, and experience of the Community Advisory Committee members. So we want to give Mayor and Council an opportunity to hear from some of them directly. Joining us today, we have Judy Bluehorse Skelton and Savannah Jackson with PSU's Indigenous Nation Studies program and the Native American Community Advisory Council. Maya Sykes, a student at St. Mary's Academy, will also speak. Following Maya will be Randy Gregg, and then Amber Holland, who is operations manager of the Portland Farmers Market. So Judy, if you are ready, it's an honor to pass it to you first.
Thanks, Kate. Tatsmiwi, hello. Thank you for everyone's time, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. I want to appreciate all the work that Portland Park staff and Tate has done over these past really challenging years to continue to meet with community, meeting with the Native American Community Advisory Council and others in the Indigenous community, and as well as other community members, to have these really difficult conversations. Because when we talk about parks, we may not think that it's a difficult conversation, but when we talk about land, and when we look at the pictures that Tate showed about the historic, how this park block came to be, we can't look at the pictures without wondering, where are the Indigenous people? Where are people of color? Where is the Black community? Where are the women? So the park is created at a time when over half of the nation's population was not participating. We're not there. We're not at the table. And so I really value the courage of everyone to continue to come to the table, to continue to have to tell our histories, educate, recognize the trauma of the people. It's the trauma of the land. When we look at that picture, it's the trauma. It's just a clear cut. It's just, and so I really appreciate the work Parks has really taken in this particular master plan. I've served on one other master plan for Cully Park with our native gathering gardens there years ago. A landfill, another traumatized piece of land that we're all in the process of trying to heal and restore and stabilize as we heal and restore and stabilize our communities. And so this is more than symbolic, it's very palpable. And I'm personally encouraged by the succession planting, an approach that recognizes that over time, change will happen. We want to support the trees and what's there right now. They are our relatives. And for many in Indigenous communities around the world, the big trees are our elders. They were here before us. And so when we endeavor to work in those landscapes, and in this case, the urban forest, we have a big responsibility. And this park blocks is very Eurocentric. The narrative is very Eurocentric, very linear. When we look around the world, these are for the carriages of the queens and kings to bring their people through, whether we're looking in Africa or South America. And so the excitement of diversifying the use of the spaces, the excitement to diversify the plantings that provide habitat for all of us, as well as our native species, is exciting. That's a very different way to create this kind of space. It's inclusive. It recognizes that the multiple generations that come to these spaces are finding different meanings there, whether it's playing, riding their bikes, hanging out, doing homework, having lunch, or just finding a retreat and reflection and all of the other gifts of our natural world when it's healthy. And so it's, I look forward to what's to come. The space here has always been part of our outdoor classrooms for Indigenous Nation Studies Department and many other departments on campus. I think this work is synergistic with what PSU is looking to do. Unprecedented to acknowledge our PSU president, Stephen Percy, that perhaps we will have outdoor classrooms, ceremonial space on a large land adjacent to the park blocks on campus that will be a remnant, a baby oak savanna, and recognizing the role of bringing our salmon banks into the heart of the city as we've done, overcoming the challenges of lots of concrete, or do you have the right permit for that? Or you people need to do this over here, or you're going to have a fire, and so we're looking at the relationships that will bring ceremony and healing back to the heart of the city. The campus is already a salmon certified, and PSU is part of that. And so there's a lot of wonderful opportunities. But I wanted to just share as well, since we all joined this advisory committee, there's another big partner at the table. And as Indigenous people, we are often in the room trying to speak for their behalf, not just the salmon, but the big ones that are informing our climate. So since we began meeting, we've had the severe ice. It was particularly damaging for some of the big trees. We've now had our heat dome, which in a matter of minutes just singed the tops of plants that weren't protected by a more resilient canopy. Climate change, social change, they're inextricably linked. They're coming together at a really critical dynamic time. And to be responsive, to anticipate, and to implement is going to be critical for our survival. And we talk about resilience. I think Indigenous, I think people, I think BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, actually people around the world, there's a resilience that we call on as needed. And we find the emotional and mental resilience throughout the pandemic, throughout the other extreme events happening with our climate. But we can also look at this spiritual resilience. And ultimately, that is what is going to get us through challenging times. And I see the park blocks, even though we're only starting with one, holding that as the promise for our future generations, whether we call it sustainability or we call it living for that seventh generation. That's a long time. So living for the seventh generation is at the heart of this. And I've been really, I'm grateful to have been able to participate. It doesn't end today or tomorrow. None of these do. They keep going. And I look forward and to those conversations to come and the hard work ahead. Katsiaya, I'm thankful to all, thankful for everyone.
Thank you so much, Judy. And is Savannah Jackson with us today?
Before we move on, Commissioner Hardesty, I think, had a question for you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask Judy if I could sign up for her class.
Anytime, Commissioner Hardesty. We're right downtown, and this fall we'll be outside a lot. So let me know. I'd love to have you there.
I just loved how gracefully and quickly you wove this 7-generation history into your presentation. You are right. This is unprecedented and an opportunity to really, by policy and practice, undo the generational harm that's been created over and over and over again. So I was going to be like nice and wait till all the testimony was done, but I just had to know, when can I sign up for your class? I just can't wait. Thank you so much for bringing your wisdom to this effort and your dedication to continuing on so that we do the best we can possibly do for 7 generations from now. Thank you.
Thank you, Katsiaya.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty and Judy. I don't know if Savannah is with us today, so I am going to pass it on to Maya Sykes, who is a student with St. Mary's Academy. Go right ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Maya Sykes, and as Tate said, I was part of the Community Advisory Committee for the renovation of the South Park blocks. I served as a youth community representative from St. Mary's Academy, a school located in the center of downtown, whose students frequent the South Park blocks. I helped lead a focus group inside the school to gather needed perspectives surrounding the renovations and inform the decision-making process. Throughout the process, I saw the extent they went to in order to curate a renovation that was not only inclusive, but worked on creating a space that can be sustainable for decades to come. In the focus group, there were 3 main issues raised: safety, sustainability, and access. And that is emphasized in the plan. The plan isn't merely about aesthetics. While it does help in that aspect, it helps face the more pertinent issues the park faces that need to be fixed. For one, the trees in the park are aging and need active plants in order to sustain the greenway that Portland cherishes dearly. The students of both St. Mary's Academy and Portland State University utilize the blocks as a quad, a respite in the bustling downtown. The current park lacks the comfort appeal that many students crave. In the focus group, many students voiced their love of the park, but there were not enough features that created a welcoming space. The plan will implement seating and walkways that will encourage those to go through the park rather than around it. It gives students a place to eat and relax that has accessible seating to all rather than singular benches. The renovation of these blocks will allow more involvement in the park and greater safety. The students of downtown are a diverse group, and that is not reflected in the park. A majority of the art and gardening is Eurocentric. These plans build on including more diversity within the design of the park. As long as this plan is done in a meaningful and inclusive lens, the students of downtown will greatly benefit from the renovation of these blocks. If we want the park to continue to be a landmark for the city for a variety of ages, I urge you to move forward with this plan. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Maya. And Randy Gregg, please, if you could speak.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for reviewing this great plan. I'd like to preface and qualify my testimony. As you know, I'm the Executive Director of the Portland Parks Foundation, but the views I'm expressing today are my own. The Foundation's board is taking no position as a body. Coincidentally, though, I want to point out that we're producing a new festival on the South Park blocks, August 27th and 28th, the Paseo, and we hope to see everyone there for this trauma-informed community gathering to help heal our downtown on its oldest parks. I am testifying today as a member of the Community Advisory Committee. Actually, the first time I'd ever served on one. I've certainly written about them over the years. But I'm also testifying as someone who's participated in the fields of historic preservation and landscape preservation for about 3 decades. I wrote on both, as many of you know, for the Oregonian for 17 years and for a number of national journals over that time. At Harvard, I studied landscape, as a Loeb Fellow at Harvard, I studied landscape history and preservation. I initiated and co-wrote the nomination for the Portland Open Space Sequence, otherwise known as the Fountain District. That's now one of only 2 Portland parks on the National Register. And as the director of the University of Oregon John Yon Center for Architecture and Landscape Studies, I conceived and oversaw the international design competition for the Green Loop and produced the exhibition of the winning team. That team's concept of a 6-mile all-access path that connects central city neighborhoods, but changes and morphs to reflect the characteristics of each neighborhood it travels through, is really taking shape today. And the South Park Blocks plan begins to further evolve that. I'm here to wholeheartedly support this master plan. As others said, with only one exception, all 21 members of the CAC enthusiastically participated in, shaped, and agreed on this plan. The process is widely inclusive and fair and reached deep into our many communities, and the result is a blueprint for strategic alignments of public and private investments to bring the vision to life over the coming decades. It will preserve the essential character of the park blocks while carefully evolving them from a past of playing front lawn for the landed gentry to supporting downtown residents with essential green spaces, while also offering civic spaces to complement assets like the Portland Farmers Market and the future Rothko Pavilion. It replaces space devoted to parking in favor of the Green Loop, a connection to the rest of the city that will bring a kind of calm, inviting character to this section. Perhaps most importantly, this plan, as others have said, begins to undo a lot of generational trauma and harm. And the master plan will also serve the trees, both those that exist today and the canopy that will take shape in the coming decades. Given the quality of this plan, it's easy to wonder why such a bitter controversy has exploded. I'm going to put my hat on a little bit as a journalist here, because I think I can give you a useful framework to better understand some of the disconnect. Cultural landscape preservation is not a highly evolved practice in Oregon. The State Historic Commission, Portland Landmarks Commission, and their staffs have lots of archaeologists and curators and architects, but no cultural landscape experts nor landscape architects. Of the community members who worked diligently to write the draft nomination to the National Register, the most experienced preservationists among them are all architectural experts, not landscape. And that's a really key distinction. Buildings can be preserved, restored, and sometimes recreated. Landscapes, like it or not, can only evolve. Like Greek and Roman columns, trees fall over, but unlike those columns, trees can't be put back together. Plants compete for light and water or root space. They have to resist disease, and some win and stay alive, and others lose and die. The most ruthless plant killers I know are all gardeners, actually, because they constantly have to anticipate what plants are going to survive. And as others mentioned, the curling leaves and the reddened needles left by the recent heat dome, we're going to see many trees that we love are really not equipped for the new normal. Preserving cultural landscapes can't be solely about the past or the present. They have to anticipate the future. I'd like to share with you 2 teachable moments from my experience with the Portland Open Space Sequence. Like many landscape architects, the designer of the sequence, Lawrence Halpern, planted a lot of small trees to make up for the fact that he didn't have any big ones. And in interviews with him before he died, he pointedly told us that he imagined that they would be thinned as they got larger, but that never happened. And at Petty Grove, this became a particularly difficult problem with the little berms there. Roots were competing for space and ground cover was dying for light. And it was creating a really dark and dreary place that people didn't feel safe in and often just didn't really visit. So we carefully worked with a horticulturalist along with the Halpern expert, Steve Cook, to analyze the tree's health and create a succession plan. And then we actually in this case, we cut 17 trees down. And the remaining trees are healthier, the ground cover grows, there's more light, the park is populated now, or at least it was when before COVID, in ways that we hadn't seen it in years. And in time, young trees will be planted and will have the light to grow and succeed the larger ones as they age and die. Now, the pathways that connect the parks are also overgrown with trees. But we successfully nominated the sequence to the National Register. But unfortunately, and this was after the Petty Grove experience, unfortunately, we did it without a tree succession plan. We worked with an extremely experienced company that writes historic nominations all over the country, but really primarily for buildings. The pathway trees and their spacing are included in the nomination as a defining characteristic, and now the city is obligated to replicate the spacing. Changing this will require considerable regulatory hassle, cost, and a formal amendment to the listing. That experience, I believe, informed PPR's approach to the South Park blocks. Tree succession plans should come before National Register nomination. Opponents of the plan, one of the things they've asked for is that the nomination come first. We've made that mistake previously. We shouldn't make it again. Considerable expertise has informed the South Park's master plan. The tree succession strategy was designed by one of the country's leading cultural landscape preservation practitioners, Lori Matthews. She's worked widely, Yosemite National Park, Ellis Island National Monument, the US Supreme Court cultural landscape. Her mentor, former dean of the University of Oregon's College of Design, Robert Melnick, whose testimony supporting the master plan you have received, is a world-renowned pioneer of the field. You're going to hear a lot of emotions today. Everybody, including me, loves the elms and loves the park blocks. Nobody wants to cut any tree down before its natural death. Nobody is going to. But landscapes can't be pickled. They can only be grown. So we hope you'll base your decision today, not on emotions, but on wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Randy. We have one more speaker, Amber Holland from Portland Farmers Market.
Good afternoon. As a regular year-round permittee of the South Park blocks, I'm really excited to be here today. Portland Farmers Market's use of the South Park blocks is one deeply rooted in community with an emphasis in the prosperity of small businesses and a healthy food system. We operate 2 weekly farmers market with long histories in the park blocks. Our Portland State University Farmers Market has operated there for 26 years, while the Szymanski Park Farmers Market is in the middle of its 24th year. The operation of our markets relies on outdoor spaces that are accessible, functional, and feel safe and welcoming for all. As an organization that operates in this outdoor space every week, we find ourselves very familiar with the conditions of the space and the challenges that users of it face. Throughout the years, we've witnessed the destruction caused by fallen trees, as well as accessibility challenges and physical safety issues throughout these blocks. I joined the Community Advisory Committee in April of 2019 in hopes of having a voice to determine the future of the South Park blocks, both to preserve the urban forest that makes the park so unique, but also to share a perspective on the elements of the park blocks that are in need of repairs and improvements. In November of 2019, our market hosted one of the community engagement events to ensure that stakeholders had an opportunity to review and comment on a variety of high-level concepts that ultimately led to this recommended draft. The long-term vision presented in the plan provides the needed framework to enhance the safety, accessibility, and functionality of this space for community gatherings and events such as our markets, while it also increases biodiversity and preserving the quiet space and urban tree canopy that residents and visitors and farmers markets value so much. I can't tell you how many times people visit our markets and can't believe the amazing luck of having such a beautiful space to operate in. The planning and implementation of the concepts presented in the plan will require continued community cooperation and engagement in order to reflect the diverse needs of park users, minimize disruption caused by construction, and create space that is beautiful and can be efficiently maintained. The South Park blocks are a special place for so many of us, and we're honored to be a part of the process for ensuring a healthy future. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. I just want to briefly take the opportunity to thank all of the 21 Community Advisory Committee members for their generosity with their time and expertise over the last 27 months. That concludes our presentation. So happy to pass it back to the council clerk, mayor, open it up to questions.
Very good. Colleagues, any questions at this particular juncture? And does that complete the complete staff report, meaning we go in and you've completed your invited testimony? So what's next is either questions from the council or we go to public testimony?
I do believe there's still some invited testimony. Sorry, this is my first time.
Why don't we do that? So Commissioner Ruby, I'll turn it over to you for invited testimony and then just hand it back to me when we're ready for either questions or public testimony.
Okay, and I will turn it back to Tate to manage those invited guests, and also just add, Mayor, at the end of our invited testimony too, we have Barbara Hart, Jen Cairo, and Nick Falbo from PBOT, and Brandon Spencer Hartle from BPS Historic Program Manager. They're all available to answer any questions regarding any of those issues moving forward.
Terrific. Thanks, Commissioner.
All right, and for invited testimony, I believe we have a Commissioner Fun Mayor from the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission here. Oh, I think you're muted, Commissioner.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Hi, my name is Ernestina Fun Mayor. I'm here representing the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission. The Commission generally supports the adoption of the master plan. We commend parks for including all voices in the development of this plan to ensure that this park continues to be a place for all people. As you know, our community initiated a National Register nomination that is moving to the state review process. Since that was not a city-led effort, the process didn't have the same robust stakeholder involvement. Our commission did not recommend approval for the first draft because it did not include the full contextual history. We feel strongly that a historic nomination that should always come before a master plan, because the nomination is the document that should describe this significant aspect of any historic place. We do understand that the master plan came first, in this case, due to a condition of approval from the Design Commission. If this master plan is to gain approval, we do seek some added language that in the event of a historic listing for the South Park blocks, the master plan will defer to the historic nomination. We ask the city to provide resources to the nomination team to ensure that the South Park blocks nomination is befitting of this site and representative to all Portlanders. Nominations should provide scholarship, context, and an identification of the critical features or views. We support the tree succession also in the master plan, with every hope that most of the elms will live many decades more, and that many will be replaced by elms or similar species. Right now, park has no plans that direct them on what trees to plant, replant, or remove. Trees under city code are not regulated by historic nominations. Thus, a master plan is the appropriate means by which to establish a succession plan. Master plans should be for maintenance, managing change over time, logistics, with consideration of those important elements to be identified in a publicly supported nomination. Thank you for helping protecting our heritage.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. We also have Kevin Neely from Portland State University. Kevin, are you with us?
I am. I just was pulling up my testimony. Happy to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity. Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler, commissioners. For the record, my name is Kevin Neely. I'm the Vice President for University Relations at Portland State University. Thank you for providing this opportunity to offer PSU's support for the acceptance of the South Park Block Master Plan as a guide for future use and development of the park. I thought it was important to begin my testimony today with our land acknowledgement. Portland State University is located in the heart of downtown Portland, Oregon, and Multnomah County. We honor the indigenous people whose traditional and ancestral homelands we reside on, and recognize that we benefit from the sacrifices poured forced upon them. The Multnomah, Kathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Watlala bands of the Chinook, the Tualatin, Kalapuya, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River. In remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their descendants. Thank you. The South Park blocks are, as you know, at the heart of our urban campus. The vibrancy of the park is essential to our academic excellence and a cherished part of our university experience. PSU has been a steward and neighbor of the park since the campus relocated to downtown Portland in 1953. And as Commissioner Rubio mentioned, there really have been countless memories created, large and small, in this space. Graduation ceremonies, musical performances, outdoor classes, celebrations, many, many notable historic events such as the Vietnam War protest of 1970. As active partners of the Technical Advisory Committee, we were able to collaborate on a vision that will meet the changing needs of our diverse downtown community while maintaining the beloved character of the park. I offer the university's profound thanks to Portland Parks and Rec, to Tate White, and the many folks who have put their time and energy into this work. The plan makes a difference for the students, faculty, and staff, and many visitors to Portland State University. It improves accessibility and accommodation on our campus and in our community. As PSU continues to grow and change, it's important that our public spaces reflect the needs of our diverse population. The master plan supports a vision for improved accessibility and safety, including upgrades to street crossing areas, wider pathways to accommodate all users, and recommendations for meeting ADA standards. The plan aligns with our commitment to equity and sustainable transportation. With the cost of housing continuing to increase in the city's core, much of our campus population faces longer commutes to and from PSU. It is vital that we support safe, equitable, and low-impact transportation routes through downtown and linking to other parts of the city. The Green Loop components of the master plan, when coupled with the protected higher speed bike lanes laid out by the Central City in Motion plan, will safely support a variety of alternative transportation modes to, from, and around PSU's campus. It considers climate adaptation and ecological resilience. As longtime stewards of the park, Portland State recognizes and appreciates the beauty and respite that the South Park Block's historic tree canopy provides. We're also aware of the specific climate and ecological challenges that the future will hold. It's critical that we ensure our landscapes incorporate species and planting strategies that continue to thrive in the coming years. We are very grateful that the plan worked with members of the indigenous community to apply a lens outside the parameters of the park as a European-centric design. The tree succession strategy advocates for the maintenance of a full and healthy tree canopy while diversifying the species of trees and plants and better reflecting the indigenous history of the space that was so clearly outlined by Judy earlier to you today. In closing, we are genuinely excited about the opportunity this plan represents. It offers the community a thoughtful, detailed approach that retains the block's compelling character while addressing key considerations for accessibility, equity, and future improvement. The PSU community looks forward to further collaborating with the City of Portland and the other stakeholders on the design specifics and implementation of the plan. We deeply appreciate, again, the time and energy that has gone into this and do look forward to continuing our conversations with the Commission, with the Parks Division, and with our neighbors in the downtown community. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you, Kevin. I believe that concludes invited testimony.
All right, very good. Before we get to public testimony, I'll ask if anybody on the City Council has any questions. Currently, Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. I just wanted to just say very well done. I've met with lots of people around this project, but Tate, your presentation was excellent. And I am very grateful for the hard work and the due diligence of the entire advisory committee, and look forward to hearing public testimony. So just wanted to say thank you before we got too late in the day.
Very good, thank you. And I just want to say I appreciate the substantial clarification that was made with regard to the tree policies and practices in particular. I know there was a lot of confusion about that, and I appreciate the focus that this presentation put on that. And can I just reiterate something you said and make sure I got it right? So with regard to the green loop will only directly go through one of the sections. Is that correct? And the remainder of it is in the existing street and sidewalk right-of-way. Is that accurate?
Yes, Mayor Wheeler, that is accurate. It's block 2 that it goes on an existing diagonal hardscape pathway, or is proposed to. However, even the design commission who expressed support for the plan, they thought there still needed to be some resolution of that. So that's something that we can continue to explore moving forward.
And again, could you just reiterate for me, when you say this is a plan, and that substantial portions of this would still have to come back to the city council if it's impacting a right-of-way, one of our streets, if there are other implications, pieces of this would still come back to the council over presumably a period of many years. Could you give a little more commentary on that?
Absolutely. So park master plans are accepted by council resolution. They are not official policy or land use documents. They're high-level blueprint for the future. They're a vision for the future. And so they guide us moving forward. All the recommendations will go on our capital improvement project list, which is very, very long. And it's prioritized with an equity lens. And we would not proceed forward until we had appropriate and available funding. And at that time, we would come back to council to get approvals on funding for those things. And then we would go through more detailed design and additional engagement.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Commissioner Mapps?
Just to follow up on that last point, have any dollars been set aside to actually implement this plan?
So it was actually a design commission condition of approval that asked for this master plan from the Broadway Tower land use review. And so that was part of their public benefit contribution. That's what paid for the master planning process. And there was discussion of an additional about $220,000 to go for a park improvement at the park block between Southwest Columbia and Clay. And so that is some funding that we have available, but that's a small amount of funding. It will pay for a small project, but that's it. There's no city dedicated funding currently identified.
And just to remind me, I know you gave us the high estimate and low estimate for what this could ultimately cost. And I know those are very rough numbers, but can you remind us what those numbers are? The low estimate for implementing the whole thing and the high estimate? I think that was in your presentation. You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
So the low estimate is just over 20 million and the high estimate is about 47 million. And again, those are planning level estimates. It's a lot of costing estimates built in there, a lot of contingency to pay for many different things.
All right, and we've set aside, so tens of millions and there's only like $100,000 or something, 120 set aside currently.
200,000, yes.
200, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Those were just some questions.
Thank you.
Very good. And with that, Megan, Commissioner Hardesty, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Mapps made me think of another question. Tate, We've heard from some members of the public that we should wait and see if we get a designation as a historic site. And I believe part of the testimony we've heard today said that it was better for us to have a master plan prior to getting that designation. And so I wanted to ask you, did I hear that correctly?
I believe the commissioner from the Historic Landmarks Commission, their preference, I think, is generally to have a nomination before a master plan. However, as a bureau, our priority is just to make sure that we're sticking to our primary goals, serving the community with parks and recreation services. So we had this opportunity, and so we took advantage of that. However, I'm going to welcome, and I don't know if Commissioner Mayor wants to speak to that. Her screen came on.
Yeah, mainly, yes, we support that the nomination should have been, at first, the nomination probably should have been focused on the cultural landscape rather than the buildings or more building visual specific. So that's why we supported. We support a nomination that will actually bring about the main character defining feature for the cultural landscape that this place represents.
Yes, thank you. That I just want, yes, because that's what I would say is that if it had the designation now, the cultural components that are planned to be added would not be able to be added, I would imagine, because you would be stuck with what we have today.
Yes. So that's part of the process, and a nomination that will incorporate and read the landscape as it should be read, as a cultural landscape with all the changes that happen and that will happen. That is the nomination that it should be supported by the city and by the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner. That was very helpful.
You're welcome.
Very good. All right. So with that, Megan, how many people do we have currently signed up for public testimony?
We have 50 individuals on the call.
All right, we will ask people, you don't need to give your address, just your name for the record, please, and keep your time to 2 minutes each. Megan will call on you when it's your turn to speak, and Megan will just let you go for it. Thank you.
Thank you. The first three are Patricia Farrell, Lejeune Thornson, and Janet Van West.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. My name is Patricia Farrell. I live downtown near PSU. I frequently visit the South Park blocks to enjoy this tree-lined oasis. As a resident and former historic preservation consultant, I am very concerned about some of the proposals in the South Park blocks master plan, particularly the elimination of some rows of deciduous trees and the addition of more concrete to the central promenade. There are distinctive features of the South Park blocks that are historically significant and should not be altered or removed. Primary among these features is the configuration of the large deciduous trees in an axial alignment of 5 rows throughout the park blocks. The trees create a long, uninterrupted view corridor as the designer intended. This master plan will impact the historic integrity of the park by removing a row of trees to create the larger central promenade. The addition of the green loop will also affect the row of trees at the western edge of the park and diminish the historic boundary. The addition of the evergreens in block 1 through 6 will disrupt the existing historic distinctive materials of deciduous trees. These changes will alter the spatial characteristics of the park and negatively impact the visitor experience. This is a green refuge in the middle of the city. The last thing we need to do is add more concrete to this area. As well-known architect Bill Hawkins III stated, in his testimony to the Portland Historic Landmarks Commission in 1983. I'm worried you are taking something that is a perfectly simple statement and filling it with things. The park is a cathedral of trees with a simple floor of grass. The park blocks have been under pressure of redevelopment in the past, and each time the proposals were revised because they were so unpopular. I believe the same is true today. That is why I urge you to vote no on this master plan. Thank you.
Next, Lejeune Thorson.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Lejeune Thorson. I've lived in downtown for 12 years. I walk frequently to and through the South Park blocks. Like many downtown residents, I choose the South Park blocks as a path to get to other parts of downtown because it is a pleasant diversion from all the concrete, noise, and fast pace of the city sidewalks and streets. We are so fortunate to have this alternative. I sent each of you an email briefly stating my concerns about the master plan, one of which is the loss of deciduous trees, as has been mentioned several times. Those of you who responded stated that no trees will be removed. You've now seen that many of the existing deciduous trees are missing in the long-term plan. Whether the trees are actively removed or are removed through neglect, you can see trees replaced with concrete, completely changing the character of the park and the pedestrian experience. I admire the courage and hard work and tenacity that is required of each of you. Commissioners, you have many problems to solve and things that need fixing. This park is not one of them. This park does not need a major overhaul. There are other beautiful hardscape parks nearby, such as Director Park and my favorite, the Halpern Open Space Sequence, where I live, and that Randy Gregg mentioned. But we do not need more hardscape downtown. Enough money and time has been spent in developing this master plan. As you've just heard, it started with the developer of the Broadway Tower agreeing to donate $350,000 to the Parks Department in lieu of providing inclusionary housing on his adjacent property at the corner of Southwest Columbia and Park. The Parks Department in turn agreed to pursue historic nomination of the park blocks. Now that lot is for sale. No inclusionary housing has emerged, and the Parks Department has not pursued historic nomination. I urge you to reconsider the city's priorities and vote no on this master plan. Parks Department should be spending money maintaining the magnificent elms in the South Park blocks while adding and upgrading parks in East Portland in accordance with the Parks Department's own priorities as stated on their own website. I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you. Thank you.
Janet Van West.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. The comments I'm about to read were written prior to today's exhibition. My name is Janet Van West, and I am a resident of the Fountain District and a daily user of the South Park blocks. Much of the South Park block plan appeals to me, making hardscape areas more accessible for differently abled people, increasing the amount of public art, deference to First Nation people through monuments and landscaping. However, it is the activation of the South Park block plan, in particular the Green Loop, I am concerned about. In reviewing the Portland 2035 and the SPB master plan, it seems as if the Green Loop through the South Park blocks is a foregone conclusion, a done deal. One of the renderings in the South Park block plan shows what I assume is a mom walking with her preschool-aged children on the Green Loop, perhaps teaching them how to ride a bike. This would never be able to happen on the real Green Loop, especially as the downtown loop will be treated as a highway for cyclists, scooters, and one-wheelers, not as a wheeled tootle through the park. The arteries to the Sunset Highway cut through the blocks with marked pedestrian crossings, but no electronic traffic signals. Wheeled cross traffic without traffic signals and pedestrians is folly. My interpretation of the renderings tells us only trees needing to be removed will be removed. The renderings clearly show an entire row of the 4 rows of the canopy will have to be removed for this Green Loop to be constructed. I'm no civil engineer, but there are broad streets directly east and west of the South Park blocks with traffic signals already installed. I invite the council to consider greening up those roads and beseech you to leave the South Park blocks alone. Thank you.
Next is Robert Gelbke, Thomas Ray, and Kate Dixon.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Robert Gelbke. I live at American Plaza in downtown, a mere 2 blocks from the park. I'm here representing myself, my family, and close neighbors who have cherished this park for many, many years. It is one of those places that has been nice and consistent, a touchstone when things needed to be centered. When the city core was recently assaulted and defaced, the park itself was only minimally attacked while maintaining its grandeur. All those big, mature trees seem to embrace those difficulties and still guard our core city value of being beautiful and green. Those 5 big rows of trees and 2 parallel walkways are welcome avenues for a broad array of family-centric, community-based activities. As I ponder all the information that is buzzing around in this catfight furball, I end up asking myself, what are we actually losing in this process? A big increase of hardscape replaces pathways, gardens, and grass. The introduction of evergreens will decrease the usable park footprint as their lower branches go all the way to the ground and block all activity. These same evergreens would heavily shadow year-round. These things contribute to my overall assessment that the plan is net subtractive. The additive financial burden to the city also looks like money poorly invested, and we're surrounded by far more important challenges. Right now, especially during our ongoing societal turbulence, we all need a few things to remain constant, predictable, and peaceful. Let's not change the park, but do commit to nurturing and protecting what we already have. It is our city treasure and needs to be treated as such. It simply does not need fixing. Please vote no on the plan. Thank you for your time and willingness to serve.
Thomas Ray.
Thank you. Thank you for your attention. I'm Thomas Ray, living downtown at First and Lincoln. The South Park blocks have been my family park for 6 generations. My great-grandfather lived at 10th and Hall. My grandmother schooled there. My parents retired nearby, as did I. My daughter lived on the park, and I play with grandchildren in our park. Its continuity is a family touchstone, a site of spiritual reunion. Central City 2035 plan adopted by council last year is a decade-long effort by citizens volunteering tens of thousands of hours to create a blueprint on which to predict and build our future, if followed. This park proposal deviates from policies and actions stated in CC 2035. Approval criteria H8 states, evaluation factors include impacts of pedestrian circulation and safety. Policy 3.9 states encourage walking as the principal way to get around the central city with infrastructure that enhances safety. Policy 5.8 states enhance through land uses that activate the pedestrian environment. 5.16 states signature open spaces enhance the central city's iconic interconnected system of parks, trails, and natural areas by offering a wide range of social, recreational, contemplative, respite, and ecological functions. Contrary to policy, the proposal injects wheeled vehicles into a preeminently pedestrian realm, demoting, not enhancing pedestrian safety. With Portland's surfeit of roads, it confounds logic to consume a remnant of open space for wheeled vehicles. Walking is discouraged. 2 walkways are reduced to 1. A protected walkway is lost. We seek parks to escape e-scooters and bikes on our sidewalks. Now they invade it. Vote no on this deeply flawed proposal. Thank you.
Kate Dixon. Kate, you're muted.
There we go. I am Kate Dixon. I'm a downtown Portland resident who, like you, loves this city. I am concerned about the master plan's diversion from the adopted policies in the Central 2035 plan. As Tom noted a few minutes ago, there are a number of areas that spell out how the plan should be founded. In addition, Policy 5 states preserve the South Park blocks as one of Portland's signature spaces. Policy 5-5 says protect historic resources throughout the district. In 2015, the City Council adopted a climate change strategy, which features tree preservation and planting as a tool to help meet key objectives, such as decreasing the urban heat island effect. So why would we add 50,000 square feet of concrete to the park and remove significant trees? This is in the plan. It's page 41 and 51 for your reference. This is not a conspiracy theory. Shade and tree canopy are equity issues in the city. Tree canopy goals will not be achieved by subtracting mature trees. Commissioners, I urge you to direct city resources to adding trees rather than replacing them with heat-generating concrete. In July, yesterday, on the 14th, there was an article, Commissioner Rubio agrees with this notion. Her quote is, "Portland isn't moving fast enough to cool its neighborhoods." Commissioner Rubio states that city leaders must be aggressive to disrupt climate change and to decrease heat inequities. This is not a nice to have. This is about saving lives. Oh, so true. And if true, the South Park blocks preservation needs renovation or preservation, not renovation, and unification, not fragmentation. I also reject the implication in OPB's article today that those opposed to the plan are conspiracy theory promoters. How disingenuous is that? Concerned citizens have spent hours studying the plan, meeting with PP&R staff, asking for clarification of the facts, literally to no avail. Please, it's time to clarify the facts. What is the accurate definition of the park boundaries? How many trees are being removed for the proposed 6-block, 30-plus foot wide concrete strip? What are the intended and unintended consequences of the bike loop? These issues are not conspiracy theories. These questions need to be factually explained before accepting or rejecting the South Park Blocks master plan. Mayor and city commissioners, clarify these differences. Save this historic park. Thank you for your attention and considerations. I appreciate it.
Next is Mike Lindberg, Bill Hawkins, and Catherine Hawkins.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Mike Lindberg, frequent resident of Portland and also of Seaside, Oregon. I'm part of a group of concerned citizens, and I'll lead off our testimony today, which will be closed by Steve Kafori. We are joined in opposition to the South Park Blocks master plan by the following groups: Downtown Neighborhood Association, Northwest District Association, Southwest Residential League, the Goose Hollow Foothills League, Restore Oregon, the Architectural Heritage Foundation, the Coalition of Historic Resources, the Emergency Tree Response Team of Elizabeth Jones Art Gallery, and the group We Keep Trees Standing. The concerned citizens I think I can speak for them, would support the goals that were laid out today and the specific projects that were laid out by Judy Blue Horse Skelton. But we think that all of these goals could be met by still retaining the character of the existing South Park blocks. We don't think that it's a place that we really need more scooters, electric bikes to honor the indigenous population. The group of concerned citizens I've received some calls saying that we're kind of crackpots and know-nothings, but it's made up of a large number of people who are leaders in foundations, city government, the scientific community, many former city employees, and all the bureaus that are working on your plan now. Our group also includes Scott Fogarty, who's the former director of the Friends of Trees for 15 years, who wrote to you to say that the plan is misguided and would be a disservice to all those who spent their careers planting and preserving trees. My hope is that you will set aside the plan for further study to actually see if a consensus could be developed among all the parties. I think it's important to recognize the plan before you today will make the park smaller, reduce grass and greenery, replace it with concrete, would replace over time the iconic canopy of trees, and would activate the parks with bikes, electric bikes, and scooters. If this plan is adopted, the current South Park blocks would be of a shadow of itself, unrecognizable. In the words of Lloyd Lindley, who was a member of the Citizens Design Commission for many years, are people who live and work downtown clamoring to trade trees for more asphalt. Thank you.
Bill Hawkins.
Second, dear. Are we on? 2 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Oh.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I don't know if the visual's there, but I'll read my letter. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, my name is William Hawkins. I'm here today to caution the council against giving up 42% of the parkland in the South Park Blocks Cultural District. The only possible reason for reducing the park in size is to provide a legal basis for 15 feet intrusion onto the existing park. We were repeatedly told that the park is only 80 foot wide, not the existing 124 feet, and the remainders within the street right away, now called park frontage, and that the original trees planted in the outer rows are only street trees and not park trees. A brief history of the park. In 1852, the Portland Common Council adopted the 1850 Brady map, showing a 200-foot wide park strip running 20 blocks through the city. Neither the street nor park widths were defined. In 1865, the council established 60-foot wide streets and 80-foot wide blocks for the blocks south of Salmon Street, and at the same time, 50-foot wide streets and 100-foot wide blocks for the blocks north of Salmon. The 1865 block plan and its 60-foot wide streets has never functioned in the last 156 years. In 1877, the city, after it acquired clear title to the blocks south of Salmon Street, ordered a park at least 100 feet wide, as witnessed by the existing outer rows of trees planted with 100-foot center to centers. The 80-foot block lines were completely abandoned, and the park was installed at approximately 109 feet in width, as recorded by John Olmsted in 1903. By 1984, the city installed new sidewalks at the outer rows of trees, making the park with 124 feet, which aligned with the sidewalks of Park Avenue West to the north of Salmon Street. The reduction of park size for blocks 7 through 12 can be seen on page 41 of the South Park Blocks Master Plan. Clearly visible is the narrower west side of the park with the green loops intrudes into existing park paths and lawn. By this reduction, the beauty and symmetry of the original park would be permanently damaged. To reduce the park size by 42% is the greatest threat to the park since its inception in 1877. It denies the intent of previous councils which directed the park to be as wide as possible. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. Bill Hawkins. I hope that was there.
Hello?
Yes, Catherine, you're up.
Thank you. I'm Kit Abel Hawkins, a Portland resident for 70 plus years. Mayor Wheeler and commissioners, in the view of many, the South Park Blocks Master Plan creates rather than solves problems, calling for major alterations to the very elements for which the park is treasured. It would add complexity where there is simplicity, replace trees prematurely strip away canopy, and limit access for pedestrians, the ultimate carbon neutral travelers. The Central City 2035 plan precedes this master plan and prioritizes pedestrians in the park. The park's pedestrians, not carriages, now rely on 2 outer sidewalks along the edges of the park and 2 interior paths on either side of the central row of trees. The master plan flies in the face of pedestrian prioritization by removing 8 blocks of western sidewalk and taking them for use as part of a new bikeway, whose construction threatens trees on the western edge, construction which the city's own tree code prohibits elsewhere. The master plan states that the pedestrian component of the new bikeway in the cultural district would be a paved central path, as wide as West Park Street is now, that would swallow the 2 interior paths and completely obliterate block after block of the central row of trees. Pedestrian access would be funneled along a hollowed out corridor, more accessible for maintenance vehicles, but absent the current park's comfortable scale, life-saving canopied shade, and majestic sweep. Ready and safe pedestrian access across West Park would be compromised down its length rather than prioritized, as the master plan envisions adding a
I'm afraid you may have muted yourself. For some reason, we can't hear you.
and ask planners to focus on a plan that would explicitly offer methods to optimize rather than compromise the natural life, not designed lifespan of the existing trees. Consider ways for bikers to be protected.
I think she's freezing up, Mayor.
Yeah, I think so too.
Be turn off the camera.
Yeah, I think we got most of that. Were you close to done with your testimony?
Yes, I would. Yes.
Okay, we got most of it. There were just a few points there where you cut out a little bit. It was okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next 3 individuals are Bill Failing, Catherine Thompson, and Stephen Kafori.
We did it though. I didn't get seen, but
Bill, I see you in the meeting. Are you able to unmute yourself?
yes.
Great, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm Bill Failing, Mayor Wheeler and fellow commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I should also point out I'm not a lobbyist. Let me support the historical perspective and ask all of us to ask ourselves this important question: does history matter? Here's an iconic 12-block preserve going back to Portland's earliest days. For nearly 150 years, it's offered contrast to the city's aggressive and mostly successful spurts of development. This unique survivor, a tree canopy preserve for downtown residents, city visitors, and Portland's cultural setting, now stands at the precipice of a compromise by its well-meaning Parks Department. In the name of enhancement for future generations, the master plan seriously compromises this glorious tree-lined natural setting. Portland needs to take the surviving page of its history, appreciate it, and commit to preserving the features that it has retained instead of introducing unnecessary and ill-timed transformation. Family history and civic pride strongly influences how I feel about this threat. My ancestors, beginning with 3rd Mayor Josiah Failing, encouraged the startup of this multi-block strip cutting through the city. His son, Henry Failing, also a Portland mayor, continued to protect this cross-city haven. We have deep family roots here. My grandfather, also a Henry Failing, and his 8 sisters grew up on the park blocks. I now have my own ties to the South Park blocks. 2 decades ago, I persuaded PSU's then president, Judith Romele, to allow the demolition threatened iconic Simon Benson House to be moved to the PSU vacant lot at Park and Montgomery. Beautifully restored today, it serves as PSU's Alumni Center. By the way, this is the same corner where my grandfather grew up. My own ties to Portland history continued when I assumed the presidency of the Oregon Historical Society, situated on these same park blocks. Also, as a founding member of the Architectural Heritage Center, I've actively continued our family tradition, playing a proactive role saving and developing Portland's cultural icons. As you can see, I'm very proud of the failing family role preserving Portland's cultural heritage. While Portland Park's master plan is meant to show progress and to be relevant to future generations, in truth, it actually will have the opposite effect. Protecting what exists now invites all of us to appreciate this aesthetic mist of the past, present, and future in our historic and green South Park blocks. I hope I have convinced you that history actually matters. Thank you.
Catherine Thompson.
Thank you. I would like to talk about the trees, but first I'd like to respond to Judy Bluehorse Skelton's very compelling testimony. I think we were all very moved by it. And I think it's important to understand a few things. The plan itself is based on a European model. The design was not part of the Native American, Indigenous people were not included in the technical committee that planned this out. And these promenades, these plazas, the pavilions are a European model design. And sadly, the trees that are recommended, the cedars, the Douglas fir, and the white oaks that are being recommended to bring some native trees into this park are ones that the tree specialists, the tree scientists at PSU have determined not to be tolerant of an urban heat island and pollution. So I really do hope we find a way to include Indigenous people in the park going forward in a way that is really includes their designs and trees that are viable. I want to thank all of you and your staff for the time you've taken to review the tree succession plan with me. Still, I find nothing in the master plan that protects the existing canopy. Rather, it explicitly allows for removal of trees where park improvements require it. This plan and the public outreach were based on the false statement that the trees are dead, dying, and reaching the end of their lifespan. However, the master plan consulting arborist Morgan Holan disproved this claim in her 2019 tree inventory. 97% of the existing trees are healthy, and 50% of the original trees have already been replaced by 22 species, different species of trees of varying ages. The succession plan to date has been effective. Only if you diagram the trees from the numerical tree inventory and compare that to the master plan tree species diagram, will you see that almost no existing trees remain in the master plan. While Judy Bluehorse Skelton eloquently stated, we want to support the trees that are there, they are our relatives, the plan has no maintenance plan for these trees, and the pruning recommended by Holland for 125 of the existing trees has not yet been done. Block 8, the first to be improved, has only 5 mature American elms left. Most of the trees are young and are of 3 different species, yet all 43 trees on the block are gone and are replaced with 16 brand new trees. What is the sense of a plan that does not honor the existing trees? Our 2035 comprehensive plan and central city plan call for the avoidance of new paving and for the preservation and enhancement of the existing canopy, as only mature trees can do the work of mitigating the urban heat island. In the 2 zip codes that the park straddles, a total of 4 people died in the recent heat wave. Taking care of the existing canopy is a matter of environmental and social justice. The master plan does not do that. I urge you to not approve it. Thank you.
Stephen Kafori.
Can you hear me now? Okay. My name is Stephen Kafori. I'm part of the Concerned Citizens group you've just heard from. You've heard our objections. Now let me offer some suggestions. First, listen to the people. We have been communicating with over 1,000 people in the city of Portland and many organizations. No one, let me repeat that, no one wants to change or update the park. The citizens we've talked with, the only ones we found who want to approve the plan are cyclists who want the green loop. However, their desires can be met without internal damage to the park and without changes to the park. The inaccurately named Citizen Advisory Committee was composed of representatives of interest groups. It was not representative of citizens at large. Number two, please stop saying no trees will be cut under the plan. While the plan does not directly call for tree removal, there are significant caveats, such as, number one, at this time. Number two, unless they are dead or dying. With no plans for inoculating the elms, they will soon be dead or dying, a self-fulfilling prophecy. Next, unless they are damaged by construction. Replacing the western sidewalk with a bike path will damage sensitive routes, which are an interconnected underground system, resulting in dead or dying trees, another self-fulfilling prophecy. Or, most importantly, unless they are required for park design. This plan calls for a paved promenade through the center of the park. That promenade cannot be built without removing existing trees. Next recommendation, add a section outlining maintenance of the trees. There's nothing in there now about maintaining them. This should be a conservation plan, not a development plan. Let's inoculate those elms so they don't die. We are eager to assist in securing funds for this purpose. Next, re-examine the location of the green loop. While we support development of the bike path, we would like to be involved in examining options for the bike loop. For example, closing 9th Street to auto traffic or placing one-way travel on Park and 9th. Most importantly, bring us into the process. We are not opposers. Let citizens be involved in changes to the plan to ensure what the proposers say actually happens, that the canopy is protected. Commissioner Rubio, I would like to make this direct request to you. You were proclaimed at a meeting I attended by a fellow Shakespeare Festival board member as the best person he had ever seen at bringing people together to resolve difficult issues. Please bring your skills to play here. Thank you.
Next up, we have Marjorie Kafori.
She's not going to speak.
Oh, thank you. After that, we have Wendy Ram, Walter Weiler, and Abby Dawson.
Have you called my name?
Yes, we just called your name. You're up.
Okay, thank you. I'm Wendy Rom, Downtown Neighborhood Association Board Vice Chair, and served on the advisory committee. Per Monday's New York Times, post-pandemic successful downtowns will need more than offices. They need downtown residents and livability. The DNA letter shows problems with the plan from downtown's active user perspectives. Well-researched, it was openly discussed and unanimously approved by both the DNA's Land Use Committee and board. Read it closely. The plan succeeds only at divisiveness. Listening to testimony, you're hearing passion from opposing unresolved positions and perspectives that are too controversial for this time and place. Sides are polar opposites talking past each other. Parks can and should improve outreach to the neighborhood. People of all races, ethnicities, economic situations, and ages for whom this park is vital. It works today. Council must find a way to create a more just and equitable city and to restore life to downtown. These are the priorities council should be focusing on, not on this divisive, ill-considered, non-transparent, and rushed plan. Just recently released, the plan succeeds at stoking passions because large portions of the city's population feel ignored, distressed by what is proposed, by parks' blinders to rising temperatures. Your council-approved guiding document, the Central City 2035 plan, does not require this master plan. It does require an historic nomination for the South Park blocks. Having an historic nomination before creating a master plan makes sense, as the Landmark Commission has said. Knowing exactly what defining features must be protected is an imperative. Those in the plan are inaccurate, and this ordering is not a mistake, as Randy Gregg said. As you know, the DNA refiled the nomination with SHPO last week. Use this as your out from this mess. Reject this master plan. Ask parks for a more modest, inclusive, more transparent plan, including a budget for tree maintenance and conservation. Vote no. Thank you for your time.
Walter Weiler.
Commissioners, I'm Walter Weiler, living in downtown Portland, and chair and speaking on behalf of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, the DNA. The proposed South Park Blocks Master Plan included a neighborhood questionnaire in February 2019. I believe the questionnaire was flawed because it asked recipients to rate various changes to, quote, activate the park, but did not invite opinions to leave the park as it exists. It never revealed that the, quote, plan would reduce 25% of the trees, add 50,000 square feet of concrete, and cost something over $50 million. In addition, it surveyed a population that did not really include the population of regular park users, many of whom live in the area's affordable housing apartments. There is, for example, a contingent of Chinese residents who represent approximately 11% of the neighborhood. I believe a survey of the neighborhood population that uses the park regularly would not support the proposed master plan. Parks maintains that no healthy elms would be removed, yet I wonder how it would be possible to install over 600 linear feet of concrete down the center of the blocks without having first to remove at least 25 majestic elms. Well, perhaps these 25 elms could reach the end of their useful life simultaneously somehow in order to allow the concrete walkway to be installed. Finally, the DNA, of course, is critical of this plan, but we know, have met, have spoken to, and respect the professionals of parks who created it. So we ask them for help to better understand the plan as early as October of last year, 2020, at a point when the DNA conclusions and the plan itself could have been changed. Lacking that input, the DNA respectfully recommends you do not approve this plan. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today.
Abby Dawson.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Abby Dawson, and I'm urging the council to please vote no on the South Park Blocks Master Plan unless it can be drastically revised. My husband and I live downtown and love the South Park Blocks. They are our oasis in a downtown full of hardscape. We especially love the magnificent trees, which provide us shade in the summer, beautiful fall colors, and sunlight during the winter. We do not need more hardscape in the park blocks, nor evergreen trees that will make them more shady during the long winter months. We love the open space the park blocks provide for gathering and visiting, and the stunning long views, and the 4 separated paths through the park that provide some distance from others when necessary. The deciduous trees should be maintained and not allowed to become unhealthy. They can live 300 years with proper maintenance. Please separate out from the master plan the tree succession plan so that a maintenance plan can be included. Also, please separate out the green loop, which, if enacted, would encroach on the trees and endanger them. I urge you to leave the size of the parks intact. These two plans are way too important to be buried in the master plan. Thank you.
Next three individuals, Albert Kaufman, Adele Pelletier, and Brooke Best.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, can't see me. I can't see me. That's okay. All right.
Albert, you can start your video if you'd like. There should be a button on your screen.
Thank you. It's funny, I lead Zoom activities and that just kind of freaked me out the way that worked. But anyway, I'm Albert Kaufman. I am the leader of We Keep Trees Standing. I'm also a Southeast Portland resident, part of the Richmond Neighborhood Association. And I also participate in an event called the World Domination Summit, which is an annual conference which makes great use of the South Parks blocks. Mayor Wheeler and commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this important issue today. I also want to thank all the people who have worked on this plan and those who are speaking out today to oppose it and possibly who are for it. As a longtime political participant, I see how the sausage is made every time I come before you, and we're obviously in the midst of that right now. I think I've learned just as much about the plan in the last couple of hours as I have in the last few months studying the plan and hearing from various people. And this is a chance for all of us to keep learning both about this park, but also about the process of making change in Portland. It's usually very slow going, and I anticipate that this park plan will be similar. I think the main issue with this plan is how it creeped up on a lot of us. I've been organizing people for the past 5 years to fight to keep trees standing in Portland. Our group is called We Keep Trees Standing. We learned about this plan maybe 2 months ago, and we also heard about it as a plan to cut trees. So someone missed a chance to preempt a lot of angry focus on this plan. That said, I'm excited to meet other tree lovers and hear their passion. An aside is when I hear people talking about planting more grass in parks, there are no mow varieties of grass seed mixes. And as somebody, as you probably know, city council members, that I'm very against using gas-powered lawn maintenance machines, particularly around climate change and emissions. I really want to encourage all parks projects going forward to use no mow grass seed. I love the idea of less traffic in the park. And when I hear about how much hardscape is being added, I'm very much against that. Personally, I would go for the option that we saw earlier where all of the driving through this park is removed. I also believe that many of these trees have another 130 years to live, possibly even more. So I would like to see them given a chance to outlive me and all of us, really. Generally, I love planning. I've been enjoying looking over the plan and I love the pictures. There's probably a lot of good things in the plan. As I've been discussing this plan with other people, I've seen that there's quite a lot of good things that could happen without even a parks plan. There's a number of things that could happen. I would be interested in seeing, whether it's this plan or another plan, what happens in 1 year, what happens in year 5, what happens in year 10. Mostly I love the park as it is. I don't think it needs as much adjustment as is planned for in this park plan. I would vote against the park plan and instead vote for something that is more of a maintenance plan, possibly with some changes. And I wish overall that the Parks Department were really focused on how to reduce the use of gas-powered maintenance tools. I'd like to see the Parks Department planting millions more trees in our parks and anywhere else we can find space for them, and also removing any unnecessary hardscape in our parks and our city through depaving is something that I'm in favor of. So again, I appreciate the time that you've given me, and I'm sorry for going over, and thanks for having us.
Next is Adele Pelletier.
Hi, my name is Adele Pelletier, and I live in the neighborhood and I enjoy the park blocks. And as I ran through the park blocks early the other morning, I was struck about how thoughtfully it had been laid out. And I was aware of other people who were on my path and maybe on the other paths, but there was a sense of solitude as I admired the roses and the other greens. Now, as an early morning runner, I thought of how much would be lost by the addition of fir trees. They would block my vision and my view of those around me and raise concerns to a senior woman who runs alone early in the morning. Now, this does not mean that I would be in favor of a very wide swath of pavement through the park, because then I might as well be running in the street. What this allows me with the high canopy of the trees that are there now, it allows me shelter and shade and still allows me visibility. And as far as the concern about who else is using the park, I heard the term that it was designed for the landed gentry. And I think if you were there in the park, you would see that there are every kind of people that you can imagine in the park at different hours of the day. I think that they have their own personality, and more than being the grass, the lawn, the front lawn of the landed gentry, they're a peaceful backyard for all of the visitors. And in normal times, even the Portland Visitor Bureau gives out a scavenger list to people at hotels so that visitors to the city come through the park and get to know us in that way. I totally support the goals of Ms. Skelton and putting in indigenous plants, because that doesn't have to interfere with the overall layout. I do not agree with having a wide swath of concrete or pavement down the middle, nor do I understand the need for a child's playground, which to me doesn't look like it's reaching out to any groups that are not already using the park. I thank you for listening, and I hope that you will consider supporting the park as it is and increasing the maintenance so that the trees that are alive today can stay alive.
Brooke Best.
Okay, I'm Brooke Best, and I'm part of an all-volunteer group working with DNA to list the South Park blocks on the National Register. The draft plan is flawed, and I say this based on fact, not conspiracy theories. The Design Commission's 2016 final findings on the Broadway Tower project initiating this master plan stated that the applicant proposed listing the park blocks on the National Register. However, Park said they had an agreement in place with the State Historic Preservation Office to list by 2020 and elected to pursue that on their own. What happened with this agreement with the SHPO? The timing of the plan's adoption before conclusion of the listing process is flawed, since the nomination serves to guide the park stewardship. This master plan should be based on professional standards for historic cultural landscapes, specifically the National Park Service's Preservation Brief 36. The plan simply references the standards for rehabilitation and asserts that it's taking a rehabilitation approach. Nothing in the document assesses how the design concept will meet these standards. Instead, it appears to ignore most of them. Commissioner Rubio's communications director is quoted saying, "No trees will be proactively removed. Zero, nada, none." This is just semantics. The plan's detailed maps show otherwise, and you've heard it in previous testimony. This includes the dual north-south walkways that are getting collapsed into one wider central hardscape. It's almost impossible, as Walter Weiler said, to do this, and that it sure seems like these trees are getting proactively removed in order to accomplish that. The green loop further threatens the western row of trees, as you've heard, not to mention that it contradicts the city's own tree code. We've seen this before with grand schemes to improve the park in the 50s and 70s. In both cases, they yielded to a more restrained approach out of respect for the resource. Doesn't the park deserve the same respect now? Please vote no. And thank you very much for this chance to comment.
Next.
Megan, before you get to the next three, I've had a request for a brief recess. And I'm seeing my colleagues shake their heads there. So why don't we take a 10-minute recess, give everybody a chance to get up and stretch. We will reconvene at 4:15 p.m. So we'll take a 10-minute recess. We are in recess. session. Go ahead.
All right, the next three individuals are Ian McKenzie, Richard Ram, and Christina Helens.
Good afternoon. My name is Ian McKenzie, and just to add some variety, I'm here to support the South Park's Blocks Master Plan. I love the South Park blocks. I first came to Portland in 2004 and spent the summer working in the Park Avenue Cafe at Southwest Park and Market. I'd walk through the park blocks every day on my way to and from work. It was the first part of Portland that I got to know well, and I can't believe that was 17 years ago. If I thought there was a plan to harm the park blocks, I'd be here in opposition. Sadly, there's been a lot of misunderstanding about what this plan proposes. One prominent community figure posted on Facebook pictures of trees in the South Park blocks with yellow caution tape tied around the trunks, indicating that they were due to be cut down soon. As of last night, that post has 341 comments and 202 shares. Most people commenting are of the belief that the city put the tape there and those trees are coming down. The tape there was put there by the person who posted the photos. None of those trees are going to be removed for the green loop, as is widely believed. What this plan does have is a succession plan for what happens when trees need to be replaced. I still remember an unusually wet and windy summer day 17 years ago when a woman came into the Park Avenue Cafe, absolutely distraught. A tree had fallen down on her car, which she'd been sitting in only minutes before. She was convinced that she would have been killed or badly injured if she'd still been in that car. Hopefully incidents like that are rare, but they illustrate why we need a plan for when and how to replace trees. I really hope that City Council not only votes to approve this plan, but to explicitly give Parks and PBOT direction to move forward with the connected cultural district plan outlined in Appendix B. That shows a wonderful vision for how we can increase green space and tree canopy in the heart of downtown by reclaiming space that is currently paved, while maintaining access to important cultural venues like the Art Museum and the Schnitzer Concert Hall. Thank you very much.
Next is Christina Helens.
Hi, my name is Christina Helens. Hello, thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Christina Helens. I graduated in 2019 with a major in environmental policy and decision-making at the University of Puget Sound. And I grew up in the First Congregational United Church of Christ and now serve as a council member. I would like to point out that South Park Block number 11 is our front yard, and we, nor any of the churches on the park blocks, were formally included in the Community Advisory Committee. First, I'd like to commend you on your efforts. Clearly, a lot of thought and time went into this plan. And through the presentation we just heard from Judy Bluehorse Skelton, I have changed my mind, and I think the tree succession strategy is adequately inclusive. I only ask you, what is the end of a tree's lifespan? Where this plan falls apart is on the green loop alignment. I ask that you vote no on the proposal as is. I urge you to re-examine the plan for connecting the green loop to the South Park blocks. The green loop is inside or using the already existing sidewalk on the park blocks in the University District. Example, Block 2. Why can this not continue in the Cultural District? As the plan is now, it will take away approximately 84 parking spaces. Where will those 84 cars go to park? The impact statement by Tate White states that, quote, the South Park Blocks Master Plan promotes decreased energy use from people driving less through reduction in space reserved for automobiles and creation of a more pleasant and welcoming public realm with active transportation connections like the Green Loop, end quote, thereby making a 100% renewable goal. The reduction in space for cars will not make it less traversed. It will just add to congestion, which will cause more car exhaust for the pedestrians and cyclists to breathe. Reducing space for cars is not the way to reach a sustainable or renewable goal, especially when the space in question serves a significant population of elderly people who attend church services and enter through the ADA ramps in our front entrance adjacent to the park blocks. I ask that you vote no on the proposal as is and open it back up for more community input during a time when the city is starting to get back to normal and extensively re-examine the connections to the Green Loop. Thank you for your time.
Richard Ram.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Rahm. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a downtown resident and along with other neighbors have for many years volunteered in the park, tending the roses and planter beds in Block 10 between the Art Museum and Historical Society. Indeed, we were out there early this morning. As a local resident, I am in the park frequently at various times of day and times of year and can testify that it is actively enjoyed by a great variety of people. Downtown office workers, neighborhood residents, groups of preschool children, PSU students on the grass, elderly Chinese practicing Tai Chi, wedding parties, visitors and tour groups from near and far. Park users of all ages, shapes, and sizes. The idea that this master plan is needed to activate the park is a bizarre and synthetic rationalization of an uncalled for project. We have a magnificent park already, a cost of possibly $50 million taxpayer dollars when Portland can't cope with its homelessness and housing problems. What are the city's priorities? Is this what voters want? There was no significant public call to change the park. This plan was developer initiated and promoted and staff driven, not a response to any widespread citizens' call to rebuild this city treasure. I sense that momentum for this has been generated artificially. Better maintenance would preserve this wonderful city asset at a fraction of the cost of this proposal. Devote big money to the city's real problems, not this. Please vote no on the master plan. Thank you.
Next three individuals are Roger Verlakis, Denise McGriff, and Robert Wright. Roger, are you able to unmute yourself?
Thank you. Am I heard now?
Yes, but we can't see you if you'd like to turn on your video.
How do I do that?
There should be a little video icon next to your mute icon. There you go.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Roger Verlakis. Many a pleasant hour I've passed in the South Park blocks in the 47 years Portland has been home. The laudable and necessary goals of increased equity and apology for our nation's deplorable past actions expressed in Commissioner Rubio's resolution are somewhat being met by simply having a park in the cultural center of the city open to all. If the city is bound and determined to spend money on a park, why not build one where it is needed? Never did the South Park block seem to me exclusive or need improvement, and it doesn't need it now. It only needs some care. Some care is also sorely needed by many of the inhabitants of the city of Portland. The $47 million proposed to fix the South Park blocks, which aren't broken, is not a rational use of funds, especially with the problems facing our city today. It feels awful to walk through the South Park blocks past people sleeping on the ground. It feels awful to me that our city has come to this, and it must feel really awful to sleep on concrete. Surely $47 million could be better spent. Please vote to not accept the South Park Blocks master plan, not now and not anytime soon. My mother did not let us eat dessert before eating broccoli. Redoing the South Park blocks is dessert. It is past time for the city to focus on broccoli. Thank you for your time.
Next is Denise McGriff.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Denise McGriff, and today I am wearing two hats.
I am an advisor with the National Trust for Historic Preservation representing the state of Oregon. And I'm also the president of the board of the Bosco Milligan Foundation. You are familiar with us as we own and operate the Architectural Heritage Center at Southeast Grand Avenue and Alder Streets. We are basically concerned with the master plan. As you're aware, it is a series of blocks in the center of our city. And we are fortunate to have the foresight of the legacy of the previous founders as a gift to the city of Portland. These blocks are like pearls in a necklace. You can't just take them apart and still have a necklace. The pearls have to be kept together. They are the pearls of our cultural landscape. They are not separate districts that are owned by PSU or anyone else. They belong to everyone in the city. A couple of the concerns that I noted personally are that the park blocks are a place of contemplation and they are devoid of visual clutter. So why do we need to add more stuff? When you're in the park, you want to be thinking about life, the universe, and everything. And trees are a good thing to look at. We don't need more things to be added to the park. The master plan, I believe, is a little bit of a short-term gain at the cost of the legacy of the park blocks. The master plan should be delayed until the National Register nomination can provide the necessary guide for development of the park blocks. And as the previous speaker noted, the place in Portland where parks are really needed and money needs to be spent, as you all know, is Southeast Portland. They are devoid of many parks and they could use that $147 million over there rather than spending it on the park blocks, which need maintenance and not more money poured into it. I want to thank you for the opportunity from the Bosco Milligan Foundation and from the National Trust. We support the efforts of the city of Portland to retain its cultural landscapes. Thank you.
Robert Wright.
My name is Robert Wright. I'm a proud native of Portland and have lived in the West End for the last 15 years, close to the South Park blocks. Certainly, a plan is needed for this historic urban jewel, a plan to maintain and replace its iconic trees, a plan to maintain pathways and supporting infrastructure. However, the proposed master plan changed the fundamental design of well-renowned world landscape artist and pioneering horticulturist Louis G. Funder. He planned Manhattan's Central Park and San Francisco's Golden Gate Park before being commissioned by the city to design the South Park blocks. Louis Funder's Portland House is on the National Register of Historic Places, so too should be the park he designed. Around the world, it is well recognized that urban parks are much needed places of solace, respite, and recreation. Presently, in proper balance with these fundamentals, the park is active with a playground for children, spaces for farmers markets, weddings, civic protests, a rest for university students, and a place for their graduation. A redesign is not needed. The South Park blocks is very accessible to pedestrians, open to all, the very embodiment of diversity and equity. As has been done for streets through quiet residential neighborhoods, any modification should be calming, not activating. Remove trees, wider swaths of bare concrete, and an active lane with bicycles, skateboards, e-scooters, and powered electric bicycles will certainly not be calming for pedestrians and those with mobility issues. A stroll on the Waterfront Park Trail and the East Flank Esplanade is a look into this future. City lanes for bicyclists should be for access to the park and not be through or adjacent to it. You are stewards of the park. Great care and foresight are needed, lest it eventually becomes something akin to a fairground, to be overused, pushing history and respite aside. There are some good features in the plan, but as proposed, the South Park Blocks master plan should not be approved. Thank you.
Next three individuals are Diana Stewart, Marion DeBartolaban, and Eric Lindauer.
Good afternoon. You folks hear me? Okay. Good afternoon. I live in downtown Portland. My name is Diana Stewart. This plan is designed to activate the South Park blocks at a time when the health of those of us who live here are endangered by climate change. It increases concrete by 50,000 square feet, endangering tree roots, and eliminates at a minimum the central row of elms and trees where concrete activation spaces, seating, etc. are planned, thus reducing the canopy. It replants with species that don't protect us as well from urban heat death and pollution. This is the only neighborhood green park for the downtown. We urge you to maintain the park, honoring the wishes and needs of a neighborhood and your commitment to address the devastations of climate change. You are told that the plan is the result of many voices, but those who want to preserve and protect, not activate the South Park blocks, have been marginalized in this process. Just look at those invited by parks to address you at the beginning of today's presentation. None, not one, was a downtown resident. Not one was from the DNA. A campaign of disinformation and disingenuous attacks have been mounted against those who have studied this plan for over a year and who have thoughtfully raised concerns and objections. One uninformed city staffer who refused to even look at the evidence supporting those concerns is now emailing citizens that the plan was spurred by, quote, the need to plan for a growing city, redevelopment in the area, and to continue popular activities. Exactly. Developer needs, activity needs, which could be held in other downtown already activated parks. What's missing from this list of needs? Were the needs of neighborhood residents raised? Absolutely not. Support and pollution hazards that the park currently mitigates, not mentioned at all in the plan. The staffer states that there is no proposal to remove any trees at this time. So when? When the bicycle loop goes through, when the central concrete promenade, seating, or meeting spaces are built, 6 months, 5 years, when the trees decline and die because the plan makes no provisions to inoculate, affirmatively ensuring that trees will die who could live another 100 years. Now, if you believe Portland Tribune's article today, you have already made up your minds and intend to approve this plan no matter what you hear from us or what the science or your citizens say. I hope that's not true. This plan has caused much conflict in the city. The process has repeatedly ignored and marginalized downtown citizen voices. Please vote no. I, too, was moved by Ms. Bluehorse-Skelton's comments and look forward to attempting to meet the goals she addressed in the existing park. Let's all protect and preserve what you call in city brochures this, quote, gem of a park. Thank you all very much.
Marion DeBartolome.
Thank you for hearing me today. My name is Marion DeBartolome. I am a person of African and Native American heritage. I live downtown and wish to ask you to consider the future impact of the decision you make today. You speak of diversity issues, yet you don't listen. Diversity doesn't just speak to any one's race or culture. If you are serious about honoring diversity, consider the beliefs of Indigenous peoples' reverence for the land. The South Park block is as any church that stands, and yet you don't see. It is a place that allows peaceful reflection, a respite for the soul. Instead, provide maintenance for this beautiful, unique, deciduous tree landscape. Evergreen trees have no place in its design. Protect the trees that do a Herculean job on pollution control in our neighborhood. Citizens live here, and tourists frequent our downtown and have the experience of 3 unique parks: Pioneer Square, a hardscape; Directors Park, a hardscape; and the South Block Park. The only one that gives a nod to nature is the South Block Park. It stands alone in the concrete and steel of our ever-growing city. In the grand scale of things, New York has Central Park. Why can't Portland have the park, South Block Park, without evergreen trees, bicycles, or e-scooters racing through, changing the feelings of peace and pedestrian safety that exists there today? Are you willing to go down in history as having destroyed this beautiful oasis? Honor your promise to apply for historical recognition of the park. Other areas need support and change more than the South Block Park. Instead, help provide jobs, clean up the destruction of the past year. First and foremost, thank you for your consideration.
Eric Lindauer.
Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners Ryan, Hardesty, Maps, and Rubio. I do not envy your decision on this issue, nor the many other critical issues facing our city. Notwithstanding the work that went into the master plan, this plan fundamentally changes the character of the South Park blocks. And I must say, I think I agree with many of the others. I think this master plan caught many of us by surprise, as evidenced by the number of people who are testifying against it today. And I'm sure they made an effort to outreach, but there is simply a lack of communication with the community that enjoys the presence of this park. I ask you, where is the demand? Certainly does not match the concerns that this city has for the homeless. But why would we spend $46.5 million on a problem that really doesn't exist? There's no reason to take out trees. There's no reason to add cement. This money is far better spent on improving the parks on the southeast of our city, where the need is great, the improvements wanted, and the citizens' support. With all the issues that are facing you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, we do not need to spend $46 million on a problem that simply does not exist. I'm reminded of Shakespeare's comment in King Lear, and I think this applies to the Parks Department. Striving to do better, we often mar what is well. So I think what has happened here is that a master plan that may be striving to do better, but in the end result, mars what is already quite well. Please slow this process down, vote against this plan, or reconsider it as you deliberate on this important issue. Thank you.
Next three individuals, Leslie Hutchinson, Lawrence Kajaku, and Carol Meyer-Reed.
I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me? Okay, I'll just begin. I started my video, but I don't see, maybe it'll come on. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and City Council members for hearing my comments.
Help you with your video. Megan, can you help her do her video?
I see her video on. Can everybody else?
Oh God, okay, I'm using the group view, sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay.
There I am. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and City Council members for hearing my comments today. My name is Leslie Hutchinson. Born and raised in Portland, I descend from the Farrell family, for which the Farrell Sycamore London plane tree at 10th and Southwest Main is named, and I'm a volunteer member of the DNA subcommittee to write the National Register nomination for the South Park blocks. As a lifelong fan of the South Park blocks, I wonder if the original designers could believe how their park has survived. This stately sequence of 12 contiguous blocks of deciduous trees and uninterrupted rows that provide safety and serenity and inspiration to all those who walk across it. They would hope it continued to be the site of celebration, ceremonies, and recognition of the people of all races and creeds who built it and who use it. In its intrinsic state, this park does not need more concrete. It does not need a bike path, which is totally inconsistent with it, incompatible with pedestrian use of the park today. There are many attractive features, many of which do not need a master plan to be implemented. What it does need is more care for every single American elm it can lay its hands on. It needs safe pathways, more current statuary, creative attention to planting beds and grooming, and none of these are mentioned. None of these are necessary none of these require a master plan. It also needs respect for the nearly 150 years of providing the citizens of Portland with a breathtaking treasure. As witnessed in the widespread objections to the master plan today, Parks and Rec wants to present a community developed design, as they state, as their first goal. This is not the one. And what is the rush? I urge the council to vote no and to reconsider this plan. Thank you.
Next is Lauren Kajaku.
Hello.
Apologies, Lawrence. Sorry about that.
I'm Lawrence Kajaku, representing the Northwest District Association. Our neighborhood association opposes the South Park Blocks master plan. This historic and unique green space in the heart of the city should be cherished and cared for rather than remade to resemble other city parks. We question the priorities of the Parks Bureau in imposing a makeover of the South Park blocks that would cost $47 million while ignoring needed parks and recreation facilities elsewhere, including in our own neighborhood. Our Northwest District has added more than 4,000 new housing units over the past 10 years, considerably more than any other neighborhood. Although these construction projects have generated over $17 million in system development charges, Parks Bureau spending in our neighborhood has remained meager, and a small park that was planned 10 years ago has not even been initiated. The impetus for this master plan was developer and agency interests, not neighborhood needs. The developer of an oversized hotel and office building near the park was required to offer a public benefit proposal, which turned out to be an affordable housing apartment building that was never built, and contribute $375,000 toward this master plan. This master plan exemplifies the unfortunate preference of city agencies for rebuilding over maintenance and preservation. The park's historic trees should get the same tree inoculation and canopy thinning that the city currently provides to designated heritage trees. Thus, since this master plan will cause unnecessary and irreversible harm to a beloved park, and there is no pressing need for it, we strongly urge you not to adopt it. Thank you.
Carol Mayer Reed.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. My name's Carol Mayer Reed. I'm a principal with the design firm Mayer Reed. I've practiced as a landscape architect here in Portland for over 40 years. You may know some of our public work, including the Veracats, East Bank Esplanade, Director Park, and the Oregon Convention Center. We approach our work with the care and intent of creating meaningful, sustainable, and equitable projects that respect the heritage, the beauty, and the unique qualities of our region. We joined the MIG team on the South Park Blocks Master Plan, anticipating that we could make a contribution, as others have before us. Our specific role was to help guide overall design and incorporate the adjacent green loop component. We consider the historic character of all these spaces and the design continuity of the trees, the lighting, the landscape, linked with pedestrian pathways. We truly understand the value of the park blocks to our central city, PSU, and the larger community, and yet it also serves as a neighborhood park for downtown residents. Through the master planning process, we have listened to and incorporated input from a wide variety of stakeholders and park users, including the representatives of underserved and minority groups. Please be assured that the stately trees have been well considered. Our design team worked closely with Portland's urban forestry and consulting arborists on how to plan for longevity of existing trees while renewing the critical tree canopy over time. We have to take a very long view of how to achieve a balance of human use and healthy environment, mindful for what we will leave for others to enjoy in the future. Yes, it's the 7 generations. And it's clear from testimony that everyone agrees that parks maintenance should be given more attention. The Green Loops envisioned as a family-friendly route spanning both sides of the river, connecting central city neighborhoods, parks, and open spaces. It's another future legacy in the works in this city. It's intended to serve all ages and abilities of pedestrians and persons using slow riding, non-vehicular modes in an effort to attract non-pedestrian modes out of the pedestrian spaces. It's important here that we differentiate between Green Loop and on-street bikes lanes intended for faster cyclists. They simply are not the same. The two are designed to attract different types of users. The Green Loop component proposed for Southwest Park replaces an existing sidewalk and on-street parking in order to avoid tree removal or create negative impacts on existing trees. I truly appreciate the passion and concern of citizens who, like me, care deeply about their city. Thank you so much.
Next 3 individuals, Darlene Garrett, Betsy Toll, Judy Bell.
Should I go?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I want to point out that this park has already served 7 generations, and I'm really hoping that it'll serve at least another 7 generations. Thank you for this opportunity to give this public testimony. My name is Darlene Urban Garrett. I have a master's in public administration and have over 35 years of experience in community development in 3 different countries. If I were to give you professional advice right now regarding the South Park blocks, I would say, do not fix something that is not broken and so beloved to the heavy users of the South Park blocks and the Downtown Neighborhood Association. Maintain and sustain the South Park blocks as they are. The park blocks serve the city as a sanctuary in a high-density living environment. I live on Southwest 11th. I live in a diverse neighborhood. I am surrounded by low-income housing and condos that cost millions of dollars. Everybody uses the park blocks. I am surrounded by people that live unsheltered in the streets in tents, and I'm surrounded by a huge number of senior citizens that use walkers and wheelchairs. We use the South Park blocks daily as a place to sit calmly in the outdoors, to seek cool shade in the heat of summer, to enjoy the roses in the season, the serenity of the atmosphere as I find a spot to sit outside. It served for me and for many others as a salvation through the pandemic. Most of us living downtown have no green space or even balconies to call our own. We do, however, have the beautiful elms, the variety of plantings surrounded by the beautiful monument buildings of the Cultural District. The South Park blocks represent perfection in urban planning and deserves the National Historic Designation being sought. I had some comments on the Green Loop, but all I will say and I won't really comment on that except I don't think that it's necessary. And I use the park blocks every day, and I rarely see children or families riding bikes in or around the park. Most of the bike riders that I see living downtown are serious bike riders. They're commuters. So yes, I absolutely believe that there should be a commuter route, and that should not be the park blocks. Why are these changes to the South blocks even being considered when the South blocks are already perfect? O'Brien Park is a mess. Chapman Square needs great help. The waterfront park has potential for many active park scenarios. If you do anything to disturb this urban sanctuary, the Downtown Neighborhood Association and residents of downtown will not be happy. Why would you disrupt something so beloved? Many people moved from the downtown during the protests and the pandemic. In fact, my apartment building went down to 4 apartments being used. The rest are vacated. For those who stayed, the sanctuary afforded by the South Park blocks is one of the reasons why. Why would you create another problem for yourselves at a time when your problems are stacked on top of each other in a very big way? Lastly, the rumor that this master plan was paid for by a developer in lieu of building affordable housing just makes me angry. Every day I serve the homeless and the houseless in downtown Portland. This is a major disappointment to think that housing was given up for this master plan. I work for the unsheltered camped in the streets downtown daily and know that is truly the necessary priority to move forward, not a master plan for the South Park blocks. I respectfully submit this testimony. Thank you for your consideration of my statement. And most of all, thank you for your public service at a time when things are not that easy here in Portland.
Next, we have Betsy Toll.
My name's Betsy Toll. I live in Southeast Portland. I've been in Portland for almost 35 years. I love this city and just would like to say thank you for inviting us to have this opportunity to weigh in on this issue. The South Park blocks, I would say, as someone who has always lived on the east side, have only a partial value as a neighborhood park for folks living downtown. More broadly, they are a city treasure, and they're not simply a boon for those who happen to be lucky enough to be there every day. The beauty that the park blocks represent fosters a sense of well-being and a love of place and a sense of belonging to the city. And adding 50,000 square feet of hardscape as our population grows in coming decades, this just flies in the face of the urgency of protecting green areas and protecting native ecosystems, which is ever more vital. In light of the history, not just of the park, but of this land, we need to bear in mind the coming 100 or even 200 years. What species are likely to survive in what climate scientists and recent events show us is unlikely to look like it looked 150 or 200 years ago. The park's history, as recounted, begins arbitrarily 150 years ago and neglects the hundreds of years of ecological and cultural values that existed prior to the arrival of folks like myself from European cultures. Urbanizing this expansive green space is very unlikely to foster love and a sense of belonging and ecological responsibility. And it would be short-sighted to assume that a few generations from now, the greatest values will be paved playgrounds rather than nature-based uses for ceremony and cultural activities that reflect not only the long history, but also the many cultures that live in Portland now. We can't go back to any idealized past, but we must look ahead before or beyond the mid-21st century and our technologies. We must look to a future that will rely again more strongly on the beauty, the sustenance, and the health of the natural environments that truly do sustain us with a sense of well-being, a sense of beauty, a sense of gratitude. Thank you. Sorry I ran over.
Judy Bell. Judy, you're muted.
Sorry about that. My name is Judy Bell. I'm a resident of downtown Portland, and I thank you for hearing my fairly modest testimony today. The following is a quote from the master plan. As responsible stewards, we need to look ahead and equip our existing parks to serve the changing needs of a growing and changing Portland. Really? It is incomprehensible that with the global warming crisis that so demonstrated so recently with the heat dome, when urgent and creative action is required, that this master plan skims over that moral imperative and proposes 50,000 square feet additional hardscape changes to South Park blocks that would increase the heat islands created by urban concrete. The heat islands. Some climate change recommendations are easily accomplished. Embrace, protect, maintain, increase the urban canopy of large species trees, create shade, and use natural solutions to address the heat islands, which have been created by urban concrete. According to a 2019 EPA report, large species trees produce shade that can be 20 to 45 degrees cooler than the peak temperatures of unshaded materials. Large stature deciduous trees in our urban environment also reduce energy use, improve air quality and lower greenhouse gas emissions, remove air pollutants and store and sequester carbon dioxide, enhance stormwater management and water quality, improve the quality of life by the aesthetic value, provide habitat for many species, and aid in the reduction of noise. The proposal before you today is designed with intent to activate the park and decrease the maintenance need of the large species trees. Whenever you read activate, it means create concrete, remove grass, and take action or inaction that will jeopardize the health and cause the inevitable death of our elms. Maintain, conserve. Please don't approve this flawed proposal. Have the courage to stop the plan now. Pull it back, have an environmental impact study done. Really do a deep dive into the ultimate impact of this plan. Prove that Portland can indeed be responsible stewards of its green spaces and large canopy trees, and will make decisions based upon best science in the face of our climate crisis, and live for the 7th generation. Thank you.
Next 3 individuals are Bet Steflik, Lori Oots, and Mark Fromm. Bet, you're muted.
Is my video on?
Yes.
Mayor Wheeler, members of the council, I'm Bet Steflik. I believe the importance of older trees is best described by by forest ecologist Suzanne Simard, professor at the University of British Columbia, and author of Finding the Mother Tree, Uncovering the Wisdom and Intelligence of the Forest. Old trees are in a society. They're so much like us. Trees have complex lives. They know what their neighbors are doing. They communicate with them through fungal filaments that travel through the soil. They also communicate by sending chemicals through the air. They're in a constant conversation, helping each other out. They are a caring society. They look after each other. Through their relationships, they're able to heal themselves, their families, and heal their communities. And this is what we do. What these forests can teach us is how to heal our communities, but also how to treat them with more respect. We evolved from trees and we owe them our livelihoods, and yet we exploit the forests as though they're not intelligent nor have wisdom. And we're undercutting our ability to have our needs met by using them without respect. Trees cycle our water, they clean our air, they store carbon, they house biodiversity. They are so important in our lives. If we lose them, then we lose ourselves. If we can heal our relationship with nature, we will solve our environmental problems. This is the place of healing. A mother tree is a hub tree, and I believe the older trees in the South Park blocks are all mother trees. If they are taken down, cut down, removed, the city will lose the entire park, and then Portland loses, and the citizens lose. The Green Loop is not an equivalent to such a loss. I urge you to vote no on the master plan. Thank you.
Next is Lori Oots.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes, okay. My name is Lori Utz. I don't think that my video is on. I'm not quite sure why, but anyway. My name is Lori Utz. My husband and I are seniors and have been enjoying the South Park blocks for over 15 years. Currently, regular users of the park enjoy its peacefulness as a respite from the pace of the city and feel that activating the park will simply produce congestion and noise that will destroy its quiet environment. Barbra Streisand has a song called "The Morning After We Ask the Right Questions." So here we are the morning before, and I'm trying to ask a few questions, as many other people have too. So I have about a half a dozen. First, how many of the people supporting these changes actually live downtown and are regular users of the park? Why are so many people pushing this plan when the majority of the regular users of the park are opposed to it? And what about climate? I mean, we've talked about the trees, but has there been an ecological impact study to determine the climate effect of losing all these large deciduous trees and replacing them with a huge increase in concrete? How much will those planned changes negatively contribute to the climate disaster we're currently facing? We should not be doing anything that does not make a positive contribution to solving the climate problems that we're facing. As far as bikes are concerned, the South Park blocks were never intended to support vehicle traffic like bicycles in the first place. Such a change would only increase the possibility of accidents for all the users of the park, but especially for older individuals or people with children or pets as they enter or leave the park. So why not find another more suitable alternative for bicycles? Because if the park renovation proposal were enacted, what would be the alternatives for another green, shaded, peaceful gathering for downtown residents and visitors in the neighborhood of the park blocks? There are none. There are no alternatives for that. So my conclusion is, why insist on a renovation plan for the park that is against the wishes of the people who use the park on an ongoing basis? Why not use the funds in question to maintain the South Park blocks as they are and use the money somewhere else in Portland where it can make a positive and not a negative difference? Thank you for listening to my comments.
Mark Fromm.
Mayor Wheeler, commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to testify on the proposed plan for our South Park blocks. My name is Mark Fromm. We live in a nearby apartment building, and the park is our backyard. A while back, I visited the project website for the master plan, and after reviewing a number of the options for further development of this historic park, I selected one as requested. Since that time, additional information has become available to me, and it is evident that there are serious concerns about the project. The one question I have, and believe you should consider fully, is, of all the options, why wasn't one to keep and maintain the South Park blocks as it is? This space is well utilized, has been successful for over 100 years. Please stop this project. Provide money to improve the maintenance of the historic trees, which are only halfway through their life. There are many pressing needs in Portland, including underserved communities. Please use the money there. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Next, we have David Dixon, Sue West, and Pat Squire.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let folks know that I will need to leave. I had another appointment and did not anticipate us going beyond 5 p.m. However, I will review the testimony that is on the record prior to our vote, whenever our vote comes up.
Good. My presumption, Commissioner, and I'll defer to the Commissioner in charge, but my presumption, and I sort of hinted at this at the very beginning of our hearing, just based on the number of people who'd signed up, that we probably will not deliberate or vote today, but I want to defer to the Commissioner in charge.
I think that's a good idea, Mayor, and I think it's an important topic, and would love to have Commissioner Hardesty have the ability to participate. So I support that.
That makes sense. So we'll continue to hear the testimony. Commissioner Hardesty can review that testimony. And since we will not be taking a vote today, we will probably keep the written record open for a few more days. So if there's other people who would like to testify but weren't here today, and they want to submit something by email or writing, they certainly can do that. We'll talk about that at the end. But thanks for letting us know, Commissioner Hardesty. Thank you, Commissioner Rubio, for your direction on that. And we will continue testimony.
Okay, my name is David Dixon. I'm testifying to express my concerns about the South Park Blocks master plan. First, I live 2 blocks from the South Park Blocks. I am an avid cyclist and very much support safe and usable bike lanes in Portland for both commuters and leisure cyclists. But the plan to put a bike loop through the South Park Blocks is neither safe nor practical and usable. For example, to cycle north or south through the South Park Blocks, you must travel through 3 very busy 2-lane east to west one-way streets, Jefferson, Columbia, and Clay, and one even busier and faster 3-lane one-way street, Market. It's bad enough with pedestrians playing cat and mouse with 2 to 3 lanes of incoming traffic, but with cyclists who are notoriously averse to yielding to traffic or pedestrians, self included, this will make a very dangerous series of crossings. Second, even if downtowners like me wanted the changes which the plan proposes, which I for one don't, why would the city spend over $46 million on an existing park in the downtown when there are vast sections of East Portland which are desperate for parks and open space? Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it.
Pat Squire. Hi, Pat, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. First of all, thank you for your public service. We really appreciate it in this difficult time. And thank you, Commissioner Rubio and Tate White, for the obvious time and effort you spent on this incredible plan. However, I'm not going to reiterate all the things that other people have said. My name is Pat Squire, and I have a slightly different approach this afternoon. I spent 20 years working in the South Park Blocks, first in Kramer Hall, and then most memorably in the Simon Benson House, which, as many of you know, was moved there with the efforts of late Commissioner Gretchen Kafori and the PSU Alumni Association and many others. So it was from my perspective at the Simon Benson House, looking out over the park blocks and realizing how many people enter the park blocks from some of these busy intersections. That one was specifically Southwest Montgomery and Park. So I have several questions about the Greenway. The images in the plan show the greenway as a shared bicycle path with pedestrians and other wheeled vehicles, including some images of small children riding small bicycles. What is to prevent cyclists from using the greenway as a commute path? I understand that there are some people that are not happy with trying to commute on the busy streets, even though they're designated bicycle paths. So how can you prevent commuters from using this path? How will pedestrians at Southwest Montgomery and other busy intersections safely cross the greenway? And then with just one lane for car traffic, how will drivers drop off disabled and elderly passengers at apartment buildings, restaurants, and the art museum? So these are things that I think need to be addressed. The plan talks about safety, but in fact, there are some things, some inconsistencies that I think you need to question. Thank you very much.
Next three individuals, Andrew Vanderzand, Nicholas Cotta, and Meredith Savory.
Oh, is it my turn now?
Yes, and we can see and hear you.
Sorry, kind of glitched there for me. Excellent work with the last name. It's a hard one. My name is Andrew Vanderzanden. At the outset, I want to state that although I represented the Oregon Historical Society on the South Park Blocks Planning Citizens Advisory Committee, the testimony that I offered today is not as a representative of my employer, but as a private citizen that had the good fortune to work on the South Park Blocks now for 20 years and has been witness to the proceedings of the CAC. My views do not represent that of my employer. The Portland Parks and Recreation Department structured, organized, and facilitated the Citizens Advisory Committee in exemplary fashion. My partner, who works with government organizations mainly on the state level, was jealous of how well things worked actually in the CAC meetings and wondered how she could get on the action. The only issue I had with the meetings was actually the numerous and constant attempts by the Downtown Neighborhood Association's representative, who dominated conversation, prevented other participants from having their voices heard, and actually breaking rules of decorum. I can assure you that great attention was focused on the historic aspects of the South Park Blocks, the retention of the tree canopy, safety, all those were considered and gone over extensively. However, it became clear to me maybe 2 meetings in that the DNA and the DNA representative never really wanted to engage in this process. That they had come in with an agenda from the outset and they were going to do whatever it took to prevent any changes from being made to the South Park Blocks. Once the DNA leadership realized that the CAC was unlikely to back their efforts, they resorted to complaining about the process, going around the CAC, going to the media, and pushing a nomination for the South Park Blocks for the National Register that asked for onerous and dubious restrictions without including others from the community. As someone who works on the South Park Blocks and knows many people who live on the South Park Blocks, I can say that DNA does not represent the whole community. They represent instead a small cadre of their leadership who have, quite honestly, misled, lied, intimidated others in order to try to get their NIMBY wishes accomplished. I hope that you will see through this and see through their arguments and respect the excellent work done by the Portland Parks and Recreation Department, the Citizens Advisory Committee, and the true technical experts in the field. Please vote for the adoption of the South Park Blocks Master Plan. Thank you.
Nicholas Cotta.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Mayor, for your time and listening to all the testimony today. I'm kind of near the bitter end here. And I just want to say that I'm going to be one of the people that's going to support moving through with the master plan. And I wanted to kind of defer a lot of what I was going to say to Carol Mayor Reed's testimony. She kind of wrapped a lot of the things that I wanted to say up. So I would express to focus on her words because she's going to say it a lot better than I can here. But the one thing I do want to focus on is the green loop and the opportunity for to introduce this park to not just commuters, but to people who are visiting this park in more ways than just by foot. I think there are a lot of people who do rely on bicycle transportation in this city, and I think this is going to be a welcome way to change the street. And I think a lot of people have been misled, and it's been a lot of misinformation going around that this is part of the park that's going to be the green loop. This is roadway space that was used for parking. So I think all the more we need to be really rethinking about these spaces in this valuable place for residents, and using this space for more active modes of transportation, especially as we address climate change. As we've all heard now, 54 of our neighbors died within the last month from a climate change induced heat wave. And I think now more than ever, we really need to rethink about how our space is being designated for cars and how we really make the shift to give these space back to people and the priorities. So once again, I think there's a lot of misinformation. I keep hearing the 50,000 square feet. Once again, that was part of that petition. This is the concept. This is schematic level. That 50,000 square feet is not an exact number. This is something that's going to get debated as it moves forward. So once again, I just want to respect my time and end it here and say that I hope you vote yes for this master plan. Thank you.
Meredith Savory.
I don't see a way to get my video active.
Oh, sorry. We had a note that you weren't going to share, but I can move you over real quick if you'd like.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Meredith Savory, and I live in the South Waterfront. I'm testifying today to request that City Council vote no on the South Park Blocks Master Plan and refer it back to the Parks Department for further discussion with the community on what beneficial changes are truly needed. I object to the plan for the following reason. First, it changes the fundamental character of the park blocks from an urban oasis of serenity and beauty to a busy hub of activity and transit. And the pictures used in Tate White's presentation amply portray that busyness. Second, it reduces the actual park square footage. Third, over time, it reduces the number of trees. Third, it proposed replacing some deciduous trees with evergreens, which are inconsistent with the design and purpose of the park in that they throw shade 12 months a year. It also creates unsafe competition between pedestrians and bicyclists for use of the park. And finally, there is no budget proposed for tree maintenance. While some updating of the park blocks infrastructure is undoubtedly needed, the current plan goes far beyond improving this iconic space. In fact, it will deeply damage the character of the space and create more problems. I ask City Council to, at the very least, send this plan and the Parks Department back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Next three individuals, Doug Klotz, Robert Bernstein, and Fred Leeson.
Hi, I'm Doug Klotz. I urge you to vote yes on this South Park Master Plan. This plan will create a space that celebrates multiculturalism, supports accessibility for people of all ages, expands the green loop and the culinary corridor, and furthers the mission of a zero carbon city. The green loop is a good addition. Now, Ms. Garrett earlier said that she didn't see any families and children riding here, and that's exactly what the green loop will provide. It provides a space for slow speed biking, protected space where you won't be, hit by cars. And I would say that we all also will need signals at those busy street crossings that were mentioned. And, people who want to ride their bikes faster will probably use the other routes that are faster. I mean, it's, nobody wants to be dodging around children going slowly. And it's, most cyclists have a more sense of responsibility than this other fellow described. Anyway, and as we've learned that unlike the claims, no trees will be removed for the bike lanes. The bike lane will go in place that is now paved already, and it's now just used for car parking. So I would like to see the plans implemented to make the park accessible to all and update the park as a place of beauty, rest, and excitement for future generations, and also to serve the whole city, not just downtown. People come to visit downtown from all around the city. People who work downtown. I worked downtown for 10 years and walk through the park blocks often. So it should be able to serve everybody and serve everyone in the future in ways that are perhaps different from what recreation was like in 1880. So we need to adopt this plan to accomplish all of that. Thank you.
Robert Bernstein. Robert, are you able to unmute yourself? Let's go to Fred Leeson first.
Okay, I'm here now.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm Robert Bernstein. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm pretty well plugged into what's going on in town. I never heard about this until the past 2 months. You've heard that the existing trees are healthy and they receive the highest ratings in the questionnaire that that Parks and Recs did. The replacement plantings will take 30 more years to give benefits. Restorative qualities we enjoy will be lost. The existing trees tap into deep water sources while new plantings may fail. I saw pictures of sword ferns or lady ferns. They got totally scorched in the last heat wave. That was part of the presentation. They're talking about putting in red cedar, western cedars. They're dying all over the place. Deciduous trees actually can replace their leaves, which is not true for conifers. So there's a loss there in heat waves. The person also was worried about a more rainy climate with only 3 years out of the past 20 coming close to an average rainfall. I think heat is more the issue. So I want to know where the funding is for the maintenance of these mature trees. And I fear more trees will be lost by root compaction, disturbance from development. Anytime there is a choice between infrastructure, wiring, sewers, trees seem to take a back seat. City bureaus don't even agree about regulations having to do with trees. Changes to the tree code are consistently delayed. Developers' concerns take front row. A misleading questionnaire the city used about this duplicitous plan, and it's duplicitous because of the exceptions for tree removal. And it's right there, folks, just read it. Only asked about views on additions, nothing about losses. It implied being able to have one's cake and eat it too. It's like asking a kid if he'd like more ice cream. It's reminiscent of the marketing done during the last Portland plan. Lofty wording about aging in place, renderings of rundown areas magically transformed. It's been a decade. I don't see the results. City bureaus should be neutral. This is a manufactured need. This is selling Portland or helping to sell Portland rather than taking care of its residents. Not having an option to leave the park as is in the questionnaire is manipulative and guarantees an agency desired outcome. As someone who values democracy, I find it disgusting. Why denude and heat up with hardscaping the only green space in a downtown with so many unsubsidized housing? We have a large East Side BIPOC and low-income community saddled with recently deadly heat islands. Shouldn't we honor the living? Shouldn't we be honoring them? They need more parks and trees. Why the hell are we spending millions on this? The city allowed a wealthy developer to do an end run around regulations passed by public input, by paying what amounts to have been a fine. Then the design commission, a non-elected body, maybe with statutory restraints, with only one public member, directed where that money should go. This decision-making needs a revamp. Maybe a focus on keeping people alive during climate change. Willamette Week has a fine article this week. More public health and environmental representation on decision-making boards. Maybe we need an environmental bureau rather than a little bit at Parks and Recs and a little bit at the Water Bureau. Maybe we need to really get serious about our environment. Thank you.
Fred Leeson.
Hello, my name is Fred Leeson. What we are seeing today is the sad denigration of one of our most beautiful and historic parks by special interest groups that have little interest in the park and its peaceful ambiance as a whole. Portland State University wants to use its adjoining blocks for its own benefit with little concern for the whole park. Portland Farmers Market has little concern for the park other than for selling its products. The bicycle lobby has little interest in the park other than creating an invasive bicycle route. Even the Oregon Historical Society, according to its member on the Citizens Committee, was interested in an event space at Madison Street that it hopes will funnel paying customers into the OHS. The only good that comes from this project is the detailed inventory of what the park once was and what it always should be. This information will be invaluable when wiser heads in a future year undertake genuine historical restoration of the South Park blocks that we damage willy-nilly today. I believe the current plan that you're going to vote on and probably approve will be remembered as a very sad chapter. End of my testimony. Thank you.
Next three are Kathy Tuttle, Mary Vogel, and Sudell McCloskick.
Hi, Commissioners and Mayor. I'm Kathy Tuttle. I'm a city planner, and I was on the city staff and a project manager for more than 40 Seattle park developments. And then I became a climate equity and safe streets advocate. I moved from Seattle to downtown Portland just 2 months ago because I'm looking for a city that supports me and allows me to grow old comfortably. To do that, I need to be able to walk or bike to the places I need to go. I don't want to live in a city that forces me to drive to meet my daily needs. My e-bike keeps me independently mobile. And if there's safe routes and walking and biking, that's great for my physical health and mental well-being. I love the idea of a people-first Portland green loop downtown and a Lentz green ring on Portland's east side. They are a down payment to a livable future. I know that you, Mayor and Commissioners, are seeing cities all over the world transform almost overnight with car-light streets and people-centered public spaces where we can safely travel, meet each other, and build meaningful relationships. This South Park Blocks plan is a start. As a former parks planner, I know how hard it is to maintain and upgrade a park with a community process. And there's some serious maintenance issues that need to happen in the South Park blocks. I sincerely hope that you continue to support a city that supports all of us, people of all ages, ethnicities, incomes, and genders. Healthy public space really can bring us together. Please support this plan, but also use this plan as a way to support and build the Green Loop and the East Portland Green Ring. Thank you.
Mary Vogel.
I had actually asked to be taken out of the testify list because of my hearing disability, I have not been able to hear or see people's lips during most of the testimonies. It's just too exhausting for me. But, and I did send you a testimony, a written testimony as well. I'm not going to repeat that. I am Mary Vogel. I have been a member of several bicycle groups for many years now, certainly for Bike Loud PDX, one of the more radical groups. We do not necessarily support this plan. I don't know anyone in it who does, but I am a very big fan of the Green Loop. In fact, it was my blog, Children and Nature Belong Downtown, that they took the idea from. But I have to say that I do not support the plan as currently shown, because I want to see all of the bicycling and other forms of transportation or of active transportation moved on to the roadway, and many of the cars moved off instead. It very much needs a redesign, and one that gets a lot of the concrete out of there and does not damage the trees like, I know they claim it won't, but I do believe it will. I've been a tree planter for many, many years, and also related to urban forestry for many years as well. So I just, have to ask you to take a second look and get the Green Loop part, or at least the bicycles, scooters, etc., out of the major part of the park. I know, children may not find it easy to use the streets, but we have to make that happen. We have to do that by design. Thank you very much.
Sudell McCulloch.
Hi there. Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. Thank you so much for all of your time on this and for listening to, let's see now, 53 people. I'm glad to have an opportunity to speak with you. My name is Sudell McCulloch. With me is Alexander McCulloch Potter. We have been frequent users of the park blocks. As many of those who have testified, I have a long relationship with the park blocks myself as a student, as a public health employee back when there was a public health office down on the PSU campus, as a federal employee, as a longtime downtown employee, living near the park blocks, et cetera, participating in the both the north and the south end farmers markets. I think it's a very active and functional space as it is. One group that I have not heard particularly speaking is parents. Alexander attended the preschool through PSU. It's a very diverse preschool. It serves a very large kids with all sorts of accessibility and needs. And they used that park. They used the calm of that park. They used the green space of that park in a way that would not be possible with the addition of rapid bicycle. As long as we keep, I understand the need for more bicycle lanes. I understand that goal, but I don't think it's at all possible to mix bicycles and pedestrians. If you look at the East Side Esplanade, if you look at even the waterfront, it gets very difficult. I've actually seen children hit by bicycles on the waterfront. And so I believe that connecting better to the Indigenous Peoples Center will be very important. I believe that replacing some of the artwork and expanding the honored artists and history of this place. It is not merely the history of since this particular park was designed, although I do believe that that is important. There's also the prehistory of this park, and that needs to be part of it. However, I would suggest that we need to continue to review this, continue to review the varied needs, and I would urge you to vote against this current master plan, continue to accept input and not fix, as others have said, something that is not broken. Look at the issues that need to be expanded. And if I could have just another 30 seconds for Alexandra to say something.
Okay. Hello, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. First, I would like to acknowledge the Native people that the land of the park blocks was stolen from. I have listened to the contributions and understand that more diversity is needed. But other than that, this plan seems to be misguided. The biggest problem for me is trading trees for hardscape. Climate change is real and trees stop it. This plan seems to forget that by adding all of this concrete and stuff, as we just saw with the heat dome, we are heating up and concrete does not help it. Trees do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
The last three individuals are John Zarnecki, Keel Johnson, and Nick Fazio.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Can everyone hear me? Thank you. I'm John Zarnecki. I'm a member of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, though today I'm speaking for myself as principal of a downtown architectural practice and past chair of the Landmarks Commission. I have taught studio courses in architectural design and courses on urban and landscape history and theory. Today, I urge Council to vote against the fundamental idea of this master plan for the South Park Blocks. The proposed plan will compromise the significant urban poetic experience made possible by the existing park. It is a deceptively simple poetic notion. As opposed to cutting through nature with a walk down the center of the park, we have the opportunity to allow expression of nature in the central. The opportunity to allow expression of nature to take the central role. It's an experience that's accessible to all. In fact, one could say that a fundamental expression of this type is universal, simply because it is so simply physical. The park is not an object. Its length and sequence allows experience in time, a contemplative path that depends fundamentally on defining a particular set of relationships between human beings and nature. Its linear physical structure puts forth an experience that can only be appreciated over time, over the time it takes to traverse and appreciate the past defined by that center. The notion may be universal, but has the opportunity for an experience at this scale that can be found nowhere else in the city. Please spend the resources dedicated to redesigning and implementing the Park Blocks master plan on other parks in genuine need of improvement. It's necessary to rethink the master plan assumptions and reinforce this unique fundamental understanding of people in relationship to nature in the park. Thanks for your attention and for your efforts on behalf of us all. Now,
Keel Johnson.
Hello, commissioners. Thank you very much. I think that, am I the last person to speak? Maybe second to last? All right. Well, thank you very much. My name is Kyle Johnson and I'm 35. And I believe I might be one of the youngest people you've heard from today. Several years ago, I founded the Friends of the Green Loop. Today, I'm representing myself. The Friends of the Green Loop is leading the effort around the culinary corridor, which we are very excited about opening up soon. Yesterday, I was out painting the street at Southeast Park in Ankeny, And if you get the chance, I welcome you to come by and take a look. And I'd especially like to thank the mayor's office for getting that project over the finish line. What has inspired me about the Green Loop is that it makes our stewards of our largest public spaces, our road managers, managed by the Portland Bureau of Transportation, consider other ways and uses for that public space. It also forces our different bureaus to work better together for an overlapping multi-use path. This project is a sensible reorientation of our streets for people, and I urge you to pass it and fund it. I also ask you to ask PBOT to implement a low-cost solution until permanent funding can be found. Since their founding, our transportation agencies have almost always prioritized the speed and access of automobiles. After our climate-induced heat wave last week and finding ourselves in a city divided by our urban freeway system, we have slowly realized that this is not the best way to do things. Our city agencies have been figuring this out faster than our state ones as well, but we are all in a process of transformation. Passing and funding the South Park Blocks plan is a way we can continue to speed up this transformation. My one criticism of this plan is that it has taken too long and spent too many city resources countering misinformation. I say this not to diminish or take away from all the people who have worked on this plan, but because I want more of our city to feel the benefits of our public spaces. We need systems that make it much faster and easier for people to put our street space to more joyful, beautiful, universally accessible, and productive purposes. We've been so successful with our business plazas, which have saved countless businesses and will allow our city to rebuild faster after the past year and a half. We need an easier process for people to reclaim street space for people while continuing to build on the diversity and perspectives that this project team was able to bring in. What is the process if I live out in Lentz, where temperatures due to pavement reached 124 degrees and want to turn my street into a forest? To all those who spent countless hours spreading misinformation about the trees in this plan, I ask you to spend equal energy on planting trees there. I urge you to pass this plan, and I also urge you to continue to push our government so it is faster and easier for these ideas to be implemented. Thank you very much.
Last is Nick Fazio.
Woo! Last but not least, good afternoon, Commissioners, Mayor Wheeler. Happy to be here. My name is Nico Fazio. I live in Northwest Portland, right off the streetcar line, and me and my husband go to the farmer's market almost every Saturday morning. So the park blocks are not just a big part of where we spend our time, but also how we feed ourselves. I'm also queer, Latino, and millennial, so I'm really proud and grateful to serve my community as a member of the South Park Blocks Advisory Committee. You've heard a lot of great information and you have it at your disposal to make a good decision, but unfortunately, there's also been a lot of white noise, misinformation, obfuscation, and co-opting of messaging being offered in public testimony today. So I just want to make three main points and ultimately ask you to accept the 2021 master plan. The first is that city staff, Tate and Barbara in particular, but everyone really, delivered on providing a thorough process that was transparent, engaging, and provided open channels of communication. There were lots of opportunities for the public to ask questions, give feedback, and influence the direction of the plan throughout the process. They brought together a variety of perspectives, including from people who have traditionally not had a central role in planning efforts like this. And this is really impressive considering the immense challenges of the various crises we experienced over the past 16 months. So I hope you feel the gratitude that I feel for them. Secondly, I want to lend my support to the plan itself and especially the inclusion of the Green Loop. It is a plan that responds to community needs both now and in the future. It elevates and reimagines who the park should serve and how, supports increased active recreation and non-automotive transport, addresses urban forestry challenges, and most of all, it seeks to enhance a great civic space as a place for everyone. The plan isn't perfect. In fact, I think it didn't go far enough, to be honest, but that's probably a good thing because it's not just my park, but rather a park that needs to serve a lot of people, including more than just downtown residents, frankly. So from that perspective, it's a really reasonable and practicable plan. And finally, I am both a planner and a historic preservation officer for a local community, and I'm confident that this plan is capable of preserving character-defining elements of the park It's not mutually exclusive. We can have both cohesive park with tall trees and tranquility, as well as an activated civic space that is ready for future users and challenges. But I have to say, many of us, especially those that are younger, BIPOC, or queer, will not support colonial forms of historic preservation that maintain primarily white property owning privilege through the mechanism of neighborhood associations moving forward. So if policymakers such as yourselves don't embrace a more inclusive and reconciliatory approach to historic preservation that includes adaptation, the preservation movement will die completely instead of doing what it needs to do, which is protect and celebrate places for future generations. So with those points in mind, please accept the 2021 master plan. I think it's great. I've also provided written testimony that goes into more detail for you as well. Thanks.
All right, so I believe that concludes testimony for today. Is that correct, Megan?
Yes.
All right, well, first of all, let me just thank everybody who took the time out of their afternoon to come here and testify. We're short one commissioner, Commissioner Rubio. I'll defer to you on our next steps.
So I think that our plan earlier to wait until we were able to have Commissioner Hardesty back for a vote would be appropriate. And I like the idea of keeping the record open if that's okay with my colleagues.
Yes, and how long would you like to keep the record open for? The written record?
I'm open to your suggestions and defer to your experience on this.
What has been suggested to me is to keep the written record open through the weekend. So unless legal counsel has any objections, what we could do is keep it open through 5 p.m. on Sunday, July 18th.
No objections. It's at your discretion how long to keep the record open.
Okay, or alternatively, if you want, I'm assuming, Megan, we would do this. Would we do this as a time certain next week, or would we just put it on a regular agenda on Wednesday?
We can do both, but I think the regular agenda would be fine.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we put this on the regular agenda Wednesday? I don't have any problem with keeping the written record open until the beginning of that meeting, unless somebody else sees a reason why we shouldn't.
That's fine with me, Mayor.
Let's do that then. Let's say that the written record will remain open until 9:30 a.m. So the oral record is closed. The written record will remain open until 9:30 a.m. on Wednesday, July 21st. And then Megan, you'll make sure that we get this on Wednesday's regular agenda. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. That's efficient. So stay tuned, folks. I learned a lot today. I heard a lot of great testimony. I appreciate the detail that went in both to the presentation as well as to the comments that were made today. I took pages of notes, but thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Until then, we are adjourned.